Story 1. At a family dinner, my foster parents bragged about making me a rich doctor, so I exposed the truth of how they actually stole from me and made my life hell. My parents were both killed in a hit-and-run drunk car accident when I was just 10 years old. My dad was, at the time, 40, and my mom was 36. Neither of them had relatives who could take me in. We lived in a really small, church-going town where everyone knew one another. My dad had been the heir to a small fortune, and so he never really had to work. He didn't like the big city, so he and my mom decided to move to a small town where he could have an antique store. My mom was into collecting antiques, so this was a good idea for them. I would have had to go the orphanage route when they died, but this couple from the church, who I will call Mr. and Mrs. Jones, made this big to-do in church about how a little girl needs a loving home, and God has given us this joyous task of bringing her up in our home and hearts. It's been a long time, and I don't remember if those were Mrs. Jones's exact words, but they did say something cringeworthy like that. So, in the end, Mr. and Mrs. Jones ended up becoming my foster parents. The Jones had their own daughter, Lily, who was a year older than me. That should have meant we would be super good friends, but Lily had her own thing going and practically ignored me. I can write countless stories of how Lily manipulated everyone around her and would blame me for random things. To give you an example, one day she once stole a lapel pin that belonged to her father, as she liked shiny things. She would wear it secretly in school, and I knew about it. Mr. Jones soon discovered that the lapel pin was missing and turned the house upside down looking for it, as it belonged to his father, and he really loved it. They found the pin in Lily's room, where Lily, instead of admitting the truth, acted like she was shocked and started blaming me for the pin. I was dumbfounded by her accusations and denied them vehemently, but she convinced the Jones that it was, in fact, me who had stolen the ring and hid it in her room to hide my crime and blame her instead. This is just one of the many times when Lily would get away while we were growing up by blaming me, so I would get punished or grounded instead of her. The Jones received a stipend from the state to take care of me, but they also received checks every month from my dad's estate, which was supposed to take care of me until I was 18, when I would receive full control of my inheritance. The Jones weren't exactly cruel to me, but in private, it was clear they were just using me to build up their reputation in town. In front of other people, they would fawn over me in a sick cotton candy fashion that made me uncomfortable. They would also make Lily be nice to me in public, which she absolutely resented but went along with it. The Jones would also put on a big show whenever social workers came to check up on me. They would coach me before the lady would come and tell me to praise how godly and wonderful they were. After the social worker left, they would go right back to ignoring me and spending my dad's money on crap on the internet or on their trips. It was clear to me, even as a teen, that the Jones were using only some of my endowment, both from the state and from my trust, to take care of me. The rest they would spend on themselves. As I grew older, I could see that my Jones parents would pretend as though they had great business acumen, and that's why they had more money and could buy a new Volvo. Where I'm from, a new Volvo is an event, and take a trip to New York and buy fancy clothes for Lily. When I was 17, I noticed that my Jones parents were stockpiling away my trust fund money to pay for Lily's tuition to college. Throughout this time, the Jones would never outright say so but would heavily imply that I owed them and that once I got control of my inheritance, I should be godly and generous and give them some material compensation for all the work they did to raise me. I think they already got lots of material, especially since Mrs. Jones practically stole all of my mom's antiques from my parents' store and kept them for herself, gave some to Lily or to her other relatives. One thing my mom never kept at her store was an extremely expensive brochure china set, absolutely complete and worth tens of thousands of dollars. Not a replica but the real deal. So real, Napoleon Bonaparte himself might well have eaten a steak off those plates. Probably not, but you get the point. It was my china set, of course, but Mrs. Jones thought I was an idiot and didn't know that. She would always talk about how this china set will go to Lily on her wedding day. Mrs. Jones assumed that since I always dressed like a tomboy, didn't care about all my mom's antiques that Mrs. Jones had stolen or given away, and I also wouldn't care about the china set. When I was a kid, my mom told me that things were things, and not to obsess over them, so having the china set for myself wasn't an issue. What was an issue was Mrs. Jones acting like it was hers to give away. So once Lily went off to college, thanks to my biological mom and dad's money, I had to make my own plans. I had always done well in school and had actually gotten a partial scholarship to attend school out of state. The rest I could easily pay for with my inheritance, which I would very soon have control of once I turned 18. Per usual, Mr. and Mrs. Jones were harping me about how I owed them compensation, and since I was going to be rich soon, I ought to share the wealth with them. I never promised them anything or argued whenever they talked like this. I just smiled and kept a tally of every single bank statement I got that my trust issued quarterly over the years. The Jones family never shared them with me, of course, but when I asked the bank for a yearly rundown, they were more than happy to oblige. I figured that over the past 7 years, they probably stole or misappropriated more than $200,000 of my parents' money, to say nothing of the state money they misused. I think they had more than shared my wealth. I also wrote down every single major purchase my Jones parents clearly made over the past 7 years with money that was clearly beyond their means as a housewife and an insurance salesman. Things such as a $50,000 car for cash, a used $18,000 car for cash that they gave to Lily, trips to Hawaii and New York, and cash gifts to the church that made them look super generous at my deceased parents' expense. I kept it all in a nice 3-ring binder. I started arranging my travel to my new campus so I could officially move out. I didn't have much stuff at the Joneses' house anyway and had zero intention of coming back, not unless they apologized. The Jones knew I was leaving but didn't bother seeing me off because they assumed I would come back to give them their due. I waited for our church's yearly antique sale extravaganza, set to begin in 3 days. Per usual, the Jones donated all sorts of random stuff, many of it knickknacks that used to belong to my parents and technically belonged to me. They weren't shy about giving away my stuff and taking credit for it. While Mr. and Mrs. Jones were on one of their shopping sprees with my parents' money and away from their house, I boxed up the china set that belonged to my mother and took it with me to college. On the way to college, I stopped at an antique store that I had researched about. I knew the good people here would appreciate it and give me a fair price for the set's value. Thankfully they did, and I asked them to transfer the money to my bank account, which could only be accessed by me. As expected, my Jones mom went ballistic when she found her china set missing. She called me, flabbergasted, and I informed her how I had sold them. She started yelling at me that I had no right to do that and it should have gone to Lily. I told her that it belonged to my mother and she left it for me, so why would Lily deserve to have it? Mrs. Jones began shouting how ungrateful I was and how selfish I was for selling it when they had spent all these years raising me. I laughed hearing her words and told her that she would be hearing from my lawyer very soon. She started asking me what I meant by that, but I cut the call, knowing that she and Mr. Jones were going to receive a big surprise soon. You see, I had met up with the lawyer who handled my parents' wills, and we had discussed everything that my Jones parents had taken from me over the years, which was quite illegal. A week later, my Jones parents received a package by registered mail from me and my attorney. It contained my binder where I showed my bank statements and also a list of all their spending extravagances. It also contained a warning from my attorney that should they ever try to contact me again for money, they will receive a bill on a court date. That was that. Since then, Lily and the Jones family never reached out in 7 years, and I've intentionally kept it that way. About 6 months ago, Lily unexpectedly contacted me on Facebook. I remember blocking her, but it seems she made a new account. She shared that she's now married and expecting her first child, expressing thoughts about how she has been thinking about family. Lily admitted regret for not treating me better, acknowledging the absence of siblings in her life, and expressing a desire to share this journey with me. She apologized for the years of neglect and hardship she caused me, assuring me that her current outreach wasn't motivated by money, but by genuine remorse as she found herself in a better place. It felt good to see that she understood her actions and truly apologized. I hesitatingly replied back to her, acknowledging her message and expressing my initial reservations. However, over time, our conversations evolved slowly. We started sharing bits and pieces of our lives. I told her about my journey through medical school and the challenges I faced to become a doctor. Surprisingly, Lily opened up about her pregnancy, sharing the joys and anxieties of impending motherhood, and spoke about her married life. As the weeks turned into months, our exchanges deepened. We spoke about our respective pasts, bridging the gap that had once seemed insurmountable. The wounds of the past began to heal, replaced by a tentative understanding and a shared commitment to rebuilding what was lost. It was a gradual process, marked by cautious optimism and a genuine effort to forge a connection that had eluded us for so long. Through our conversations, I learned that Lily had truly changed and was committed to being a better person. She expressed remorse for the pain she had caused and was determined to make amends. Hence, when I finally graduated this year, I decided to invite her to my graduation ceremony. Surprisingly, she accepted, and after 7 years, we found ourselves face to face. She had that radiant pregnancy glow and hugged me warmly. I congratulated her on her first child, and we looked at each other, sentimental. I met her husband, Kyle, for the very first time, and he seemed like a level-headed and supportive guy for Lily. Over the course of the evening, we shared stories, laughter, and even a few awkward moments. It was during these exchanges that I realized Lily had indeed transformed. The bitterness that once defined our relationship had given way to a newfound understanding and acceptance. She apologized to me again, this time in person, acknowledging the pain she had caused during the time we were growing up. Her sincerity struck a chord with me, and I found it within myself to reassure her that I had moved past the scars of our shared history. I let her know that I appreciated her efforts to change and that, in the end, forgiveness was a healing balm for both of us. It was a cathartic moment, releasing the lingering tension that had haunted our connection for so many years. We took a lot of pictures that day, and Lily posted some of them on social media. It wasn't long before Mr. and Mrs. Jones discovered that Lily and I were back in touch. A week later, Lily called me, excitement evident in her voice. She explained that her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, were eager to talk to me and extend their apologies in person. According to Lily, they were genuinely happy to learn about my accomplishments as a doctor, and she believed that they had undergone significant changes as well. Although I was apprehensive, I had seen firsthand how Lily had changed over the years. Hence, I thought I could definitely give the Jones a second chance. I unblocked them on my phone and let Lily know that I was okay with them calling me directly if they wanted to. Mr. Jones called me that evening, and he congratulated me for becoming a doctor. He told me how proud my parents would have been, which was great to hear. He talked about how proud he was of me and that Mrs. Jones felt the same. In that moment, I felt a mixture of emotions, surprise and skepticism, but also a hint of hope. Hope that people could change and that growth in self-reflection could lead to redemption. Mr. Jones extended an invitation to me to meet in person for a family dinner, and though hesitant, I agreed, understanding that this could be an opportunity for closure and perhaps a chance to build something new after 7 years. I was traveling back to the town I grew up in. It was a surreal moment, and I prayed that everything would go well between us. I was warmly greeted by Mrs. Jones, who gave me a bear hug. I was surprised by her affection, but I can't deny that it did feel good. Mr. Jones came out to greet me as well and help with my luggage. They ushered me in, and I was shocked to see some of their close family and friends waiting to surprise me. They all yelled "Surprise!" as I entered, and I couldn't help but feel genuinely happy. We all shared smiles and laughter as they welcomed me back. The atmosphere was surprisingly warm, and it seemed like they had genuinely put effort into making me feel comfortable. Mrs. Jones guided me to a spot where I could sit, and everyone gathered around, eager to catch up. As we settled in, I noticed the effort Mr. and Mrs. Jones had put into preparing a meal. The table was filled with homemade dishes, and the inviting aroma filled the air. It was clear they had gone out of their way to make this a special occasion. The dining room was soon adorned with laughter and clinking glasses as we talked about various things. Memories from the past, my journey to becoming a doctor, and their lives since we last saw each other. Then, in the middle of dinner, Mr. Jones clinked his glass for attention. We all looked at him, surprised. He got up from his seat, holding his glass in front. "Proud to say we've done a great job with this one," Mr. Jones declared, raising his glass. "She's a doctor now because of the values we instilled in her." My Jones mother chimed in. "We took her in when she had nothing. We provided the love and guidance she needed to become the success that she is today." We are so very proud of her. I sat there, simmering with resentment as I was confused as to why they were congratulating themselves for raising me when all they did was use me for my parents' money. I looked at Lily in confusion, and she looked apprehensive as well. As everyone toasted on my accomplishments, I smiled politely, trying to contemplate whether or not to let this charade continue. Throughout the evening, the Jones couldn't resist boasting about their role and molding me into a successful individual. Eventually, I couldn't take it any further. The urge to set the record straight became overpowering. So, I cleared my throat, capturing the attention of the room. "Thank you, everyone, for your kind words," I began, my voice measured. "But there's something I need to share. Something that has been on my mind for a long time." The room fell silent, every eye on me as I began to recount the painful truth of my upbringing. I spoke of the years I spent feeling like an outsider in their family, of the constant belittling and emotional abuse, of the struggles I faced to rise above the trauma they subjected me to. The once joyful atmosphere turned tense and uncomfortable. The Jones exchanged nervous glances as I exposed the facade they had carefully crafted. They shifted uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding eye contact with me. I put my head down and worked hard to escape this hell so I could build a life for myself. I continued, my voice unwavering. They only put up this face in front of the public, but behind closed doors, they would take advantage of my parents' money and buy things for themselves. Gasps rippled through the room as my story unfolded. The guests, once eager to heap praise on the Jones, now sat in stunned silence, absorbing the shocking revelation of the dark underbelly of my seemingly idyllic upbringing. As the truth settled in, the Jones were left fumbling for words, their attempts at damage control falling flat. The dinner that started as a celebration transformed into an uncomfortable confrontation, exposing the painful reality behind the facade of a perfect family. I then left the party after this. I was no longer willing to play a part in their charade. The shock and disbelief lingered in the air as I walked away, leaving behind a room filled with uncomfortable silence. In the aftermath of that revelatory evening, I have been receiving calls from Jones and Lily. I wanted to get an opinion from everyone on Reddit if I was indeed an a-hole by spilling the truth in front of everyone. Update 1. Thank you everyone for giving me your honest opinions. I do realize that I should have known that the Jones would never change. I don't know why, but I had genuinely thought that they would have repented over the years how they treated me. But that day, watching them fawn over me and try to take credit for my hard work, was infuriating. I did talk to Lily a few days since the incident. She apologized to me and made it clear that she had no idea that her parents would behave this way. I assured her that I didn't blame her for their actions and explained to her that I just wanted people to know the truth. Surprisingly, she supported my actions. I am happy that she clarified from her end, and I will continue to have a relationship with her. As for the Jones, they have tried to reach out to me, but I don't have the energy to answer their calls. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update. To everyone asking, yes, I finally had a talk with the Joneses. I called them out of curiosity, willing to hear what they had to say. Mrs. Jones answered the call, sounding hesitant yet hopeful. Mr. Jones joined the conversation after a moment of awkward silence. They began with attempts to justify their actions, emphasizing the financial strain they faced and how they believed they were entitled to a share of the inheritance. I listened quietly, letting them air their perspective. When it was finally my turn to speak, I calmly but firmly laid out the undeniable facts. The misuse of funds, the emotional manipulation, and the overall mistreatment I had endured under their care was too much for me mentally and emotionally. Hence, when they tried to brag about me at the family dinner, it felt extremely fake. I explained that the revelation wasn't intended to harm them personally, but to expose the truth that had been hidden for far too long, so that they could realize the harm that they had caused. Mrs. Jones eventually broke down, admitting that they had lost their way and got carried away with the idea of wealth and societal standing. Mr. Jones, too, expressed remorse, acknowledging that their actions were inexcusable. Despite their apologies, I made it clear that the scars of the past couldn't be erased with mere words. The conversation concluded on a note of mutual understanding, albeit strained. The Jones expressed a desire to make amends, understanding that it would be a gradual process. I didn't promise immediate forgiveness but acknowledged their willingness to change. Since that conversation, there have been periodic check-ins, but I've maintained a guarded approach. Rebuilding trust takes time, and I'm cautious not to let sentimentality cloud my judgment. The journey towards reconciliation is ongoing, and while I remain vigilant, I'm open to the possibility of healing and forging a new understanding with the Jones. The ball is in their court to prove that their remorse is genuine and that they are committed to positive change. Update 3. It's been 5 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that Lily has given birth to the most adorable baby ever. I visited her in the hospital, and nothing can even come close to describing how it felt when I held my baby niece for the first time. I am so grateful that Lily has changed and reached out to me. The birth of my niece has been a source of immense joy and has further solidified the connection between Lily and me. Lily has also continued to play a role in bridging the gap between me and her parents. I appreciate her efforts to mediate, and I can see that the Joneses are getting better and better. As for me, I've been going to therapy for the last 2 months. The process of healing is slow, but each session brings a newfound understanding and a step toward emotional liberation. In the professional realm, my career as a doctor is flourishing. The experiences and challenges I faced during medical school and residency have only made me more resilient, and I've emerged stronger both personally and professionally. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, and I am learning to redefine my understanding of family, trust, and personal growth. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I found out my husband was the real father of his brother's baby after they tragically died in a car crash. So I filed for divorce, and now he's desperately begging me to take him back. For context, I, 30F, have been married to my husband, Matthew, 30M, for 5 years. He had an older brother who was also married. His brother, Colin, 35M, and his sister-in-law, Jackie, 32F, had been married for 7 years. Matthew and I met when we were in business school and had been with each other for almost 7 years before we finally got married. So we've been together for 12 years, if we're counting that. Colin and Jackie met through friends and had been together for 2 years before they got married, so they had been together for almost 9 years, which is also a really long time. All of us always got along really well. Both Colin and Jackie were really good friends of mine, too. We could go out on double dates and stuff, and I treated the two of them like my own family. That's how much I loved them. Colin and Jackie also became parents a year ago, and I had even babysat for them several times, never knowing the truth. Quite unfortunately, Colin and Jackie both passed away in a really bad car accident about a month ago. It was a tragedy that literally shook up our entire family, and their funeral was probably the saddest I have ever felt in my entire life. Both my husband and I are inconsolable, and I think we were the ones who had cried the most that day. It has been very difficult for us as a family, coping with the grief of what has happened. The worst part of all, and maybe the best as well, is that they left behind their 1-year-old daughter. I say it was the worst thing because now she will have to grow up as an orphan and never be able to know her parents. No matter how much love is showered on her, nothing will ever make up for that. But I'm happy that she survived since she was at home and wasn't in the car with them. Since we did not know what to do after her parents had passed away, my in-laws decided that they were going to take care of her for the time being until they knew exactly what to do. My in-laws would have gladly taken her in, but unfortunately, my father-in-law suffers from motor neuron disease, and my mother-in-law spends most of her time trying to take care of him. So, it's not possible for them to take their granddaughter and raise her, since it'll be a lot of work. There's also the fact that both of them are quite elderly and can't run around behind a 1-year-old. Nevertheless, they still agreed to take care of her until Matthew had figured out a way to deal with this. Now, personally, I did not have any problem with babysitting, but I had made it very clear to Matthew that I did not see myself taking on the role of a mother at any point in the future. Both of us had discussed this several times and had come to the conclusion that we did not want kids. So, as much as I loved Jackie's daughter, I could not raise her because that was just too big of a commitment, and I was not interested in being a mother. It was better for me not to be a mother than to be a bad one. So, Matthew and I started looking for people who were willing to adopt. We were lucky that their daughter was still young and hadn't known her parents for long enough. So, The adoption procedure was going to be easier for her than it would have been had she been slightly older. She had been living with her grandparents for the last few weeks, but then, 9 days ago, Matthew brought her home after work and informed me that he had taken over her responsibility, and now it was going to be the two of us who had to take care of her until we had found the right people to adopt her and make her part of their family. Now, I agreed to that because I knew it was going to be a temporary arrangement and eventually we would be able to find a loving home for her. Besides, after what had happened to Colin and Jackie, I did not have the heart to say no, and both of us were still grieving them. So, I did not feel right to say that I would not be willing to take care of their daughter. It was kind of difficult because both of us had to compromise on our work hours and come back home earlier than usual since the sitter was not willing to stay that long and was asking for an exorbitant amount of money, which did not seem right for our budget. We had to make a lot of changes around the house in a few days, but I was ready to do it all for the sake of Colin, Jackie, and their daughter. It was nice to have her around, and it also kept us distracted from the pain of losing her parents since they were very important to us. I had almost started considering adopting her and telling Matthew that I did not want to give her up because I had grown quite attached to her and my feelings on parenthood and motherhood had started changing. But, unfortunately, I still had to make a tough decision of leaving it all behind because of what I had found in the bag that Matthew had brought with her with all her belongings and stuff. I think most of you might have been able to guess where I'm going with this by everything that has happened so far, but never in a million years would I ever have imagined something of the sort, and I'm still having a hard time believing that it's the truth. So yes, Matthew is the father of Jackie's daughter. I found out about it when I found her birth certificate and the results of a paternity test at the bottom of the bag that I mentioned. When he had brought her home, he had also packed all her belongings in a duffel bag. And a couple of days ago, I was looking in there because I wanted to check if she had any socks in there since the weather was getting kind of chilly, and I couldn't find the socks that she usually wore around the house. While going through that, I found a file inside, and when I opened it, that's what was waiting for me there. I had taken a day off from work because I had a bit of a cold coming on. Matthew was at work when I found out, and it took me a couple of minutes to realize that the documents were authentic and not fake. For a few minutes after reading through those papers, I was numb. I didn't even know how to react because, like I have mentioned above, all of us were really close and we had been together for so long that I don't think anybody would have imagined something like this could even happen. But it was right there. The proof was in front of my eyes, and I couldn't deny it even if I wanted to. I literally broke down in the middle of the room and started wailing crazy. I think I might have even scared the neighbors with how hard I was crying. After being together for almost 12 years, you never expect something like this from your partner. So, it was very difficult for me to process. But I pulled myself together within half an hour, decided to stop crying, and called my lawyer up immediately. I sent him photos of what I had, and for good measure, I took them with me while I was leaving the house, and I still have them with me. After I had spoken to my lawyer, the reality of the situation hit me, and even though I was really sad, I was also equally angry. I don't even think that anger begins to explain how I felt. I was infuriated, and he was really lucky that he was not at home that day because I might have done something to him that could not be undone. I'm not even ashamed to admit it, but anyway, I was really upset and so I decided to take photos of the documents that I had found. In my rage, I decided to send them to everybody in his family. When I say everybody, I'm not even kidding. I mean literally every single person whose contact information I had on my phone. I just blindly selected all the contacts and sent it to them with a caption that said that I now knew the truth about Matthew and I wanted to know what kind of a person he was as well. After sending that text, I started packing my things as quickly as I could, so I would be able to get out of the house before Matthew came back home. I had to do something about Jackie's daughter as well because I was not going to leave a 1-year-old at home alone, no matter what was going on. I was pissed off with Matthew, not with her. She was just a baby. She didn't even know what was going on. So, I decided to take her along with me and move to my parents' house. When I reached their house that day, I had been crying in the cab while heading over to their place anyway. So, when I finally got there, I had already been crying for a while, and when I saw my mother open the door, I broke down into tears again and did not stop crying for about the next hour. I had turned my phone off so that nobody would be able to reach me because I simply did not want to be contacted, especially by anybody from Matthew or his family. I was in a really bad place at the time, and I would say that I still am because there is no easy way to deal with this. Anyway, After I had told my parents about what I had found and shown them the proof, they told me that I had made the right decision by choosing to file for a divorce and talking to my lawyer immediately. There was no going back from this. Later that evening, Matthew showed up at my parents' house, but it was so that he could take his niece back home with him. It's not like he did not try to talk to me, but my parents made it very clear to him that I was not interested in speaking to him. I think he was there, standing in the doorway and refusing to leave for about half an hour, constantly arguing with my parents and demanding that they let him in so he could talk to me. He insisted that he could explain everything, but I'm not an idiot. What happened? No explanation of his was going to change the truth. I was really disappointed, and part of me actually wanted to go down and talk to him myself so that I would at least be able to get some clarity or some closure. But I decided against it because I did not trust myself or my emotions, and I did not want to act rashly. Everything was still very fresh that day, and I couldn't deal with any of this drama at that point. So, I chose to stay in my room quietly and let him argue with my parents and then leave, instead of going downstairs to talk to him myself. So, he left with his niece and I only turned on my phone after that. As soon as I turned my phone back on, I was bombarded with messages from everybody who had received my text earlier, where I had sent them the pictures of the documents and talked about how I finally knew what Matthew really was and what he had been up to behind my back. Everybody was apologizing, even though it was not their fault, but I could sense that even though they were apologizing, it was more like, "We are sorry, but now that it's done, you have to take him back because you guys have been together for so long," and not, "We are really sorry that this happened to you, and whatever you think is appropriate, you should do that." Most of the messages that I received had that vibe. People were saying things like, "This is unacceptable," "It's outrageous," and whatnot. But the next message was mostly just them talking about how we had been together for 12 years and how they did not want to tell me what to do. But they were sure that we would be able to work things out and would really love for us to stay together. They did say that ultimately it was my call to make, but I knew that if they got to know that I had already spoken to my lawyer and filed for a divorce, they would not be pleased with that. I have not blocked Matthew anywhere yet because I'm still just very confused about what I should do. He has been sending me messages and trying to call me ever since I left, but I haven't been responding because I just don't know what to do now. His mother sent me a message last evening saying that there is an explanation for all of this, but she thinks that it would be better for Matthew to explain it to me, and for that to happen, I have to actually speak to him. She kind of implied that I shouldn't just cut him off without even bothering to hear his side of the story and that I needed to talk to him at least. So I messaged her back finally, saying that I did not need to respond to him because I had seen with my own eyes what the documents said, and I knew the truth now. I highly doubt that he would be able to say anything that could change the fact. And she told me that I had seen what was true, but I still needed to talk to him to get to the bottom of this. Not doing so would just make it so much worse because people in the family were already reeling from the loss of Colin and Jackie. This would just shatter Matthew and his family. I am in a very difficult position and I have no idea how to go about this. Am I the idiot for not wanting to talk to my husband after I found out he was his niece's biological father? Update 1. Hi, after going through the comments on the original post, I decided to talk to my husband after all. I hadn't been responding to any of Matthew's calls and texts, but after reading the comments, I opened his chat and finally replied that I was ready to talk to him. He hadn't said much in his texts. He just kept telling me that he really wanted to talk to me and explain everything. Not that there was much to explain. It's pretty much what I thought. But what he said made me realize that I was right to file for a divorce immediately. I met him this morning. He came over to visit me. He looked very upset and started off by apologizing to me for keeping this a secret for so long. And then he started telling me that he and Jackie had only hooked up once, and it meant nothing to either of them, and both of them regretted it. I did not buy that because it seemed unlikely that they would get together only once. It was just a gut feeling, and Jackie was no longer here, so she couldn't tell me the truth either. Anyway, he told me that coincidentally both of us had been fighting and so had she and Colin. He says that he doesn't remember what we were fighting about, but it was something petty, and he had left the house in a huff and headed over to Colin's house to talk to him. But when he got there, he couldn't find Colin, and Jackie explained to him that he had also left because they had been fighting. She looked very upset, and when Matthew asked her what they had been fighting about, she broke down into tears, and he started trying to comfort her. She invited him in and explained to him that they had been fighting about whether they were ready for a baby or not. Colin wanted a child and Jackie was just not ready, so that's what they had been fighting about, and he got really mad, so he left to cool down. Matthew started trying to comfort her, and one thing led to another, so they ended up sleeping together that day. He told me that he did not come back home until really late that day, and she wanted somebody to be there for her because she was really upset, and that's why he had stayed there instead of coming back. And he apologized to me for making such a huge mistake. He told me that both he and Jackie discussed it later and agreed never to bring it up again because it was just a mistake and it would literally never happen again, since they knew that they loved us and would never do anything to hurt us, which is ironic given the circumstances. But shortly after that, she got pregnant, and even though she had decided earlier that she did not want kids as she was not ready yet, she did not want to break Colin's heart, and so she decided to go through with the pregnancy. Both of them were really stressed out until the baby was born, and after that, when they found out her true parentage, they decided to keep it a secret from both of us and agreed that Jackie and Colin would raise their daughter as their own and never bring this up again. Jackie was a lawyer and she dealt with all the paperwork, which is how she was able to avoid Colin finding out about any of the details on the birth certificate. And Colin trusted Jackie blindly, so he never bothered to double-check anything. They had listed Matthew as the true father of her daughter, since Jackie had the forethought to think that in case anything happened to her, she would want the baby to go to him next. I can't imagine how Colin was never able to find out about any of this for so long. Almost a year. He must have really trusted Jackie, and I guess he was too busy adoring his daughter to care about any of the documentation and paperwork. It was a clever move on Jackie and Matthew's part. Not such a clever move to keep the paperwork in the file in the bag and not bother to properly hide it from me. After Matthew was done telling me everything, I told him that it was too late for the truth, and in any case I had already spoken to my lawyer and started to prepare for a divorce. This did not change my mind in the least. It was overall quite disappointing, since I had expected that they would genuinely have an explanation that would change my mind, since they have been behaving like talking to Matthew once would change everything. He and his family had literally been begging me to give him a chance to explain, but this was not something that made me think any differently. It just made me think that I was right to file for divorce because you just can't recover from something like this, not after 12 years of being together. I don't think anybody in my place would have forgiven him or even given him a chance to talk to me like I did today. Anyway, when I told him that I was not going to change my mind, he started begging me for another chance and told me that he could not live without me. He even said that he had already lost his brother and such a close friend of his. He could not afford to lose me as well, and that he needed me to be there for him because he was going through so much. I almost laughed out loud because of the people that he had lost. I had also lost those very same people. I had been equally close to his brother and sister-in-law, and the four of us had been a group. But he and Jackie were the ones who screwed us over. I don't bear any ill will towards Jackie, but I can't forgive Matthew, and even in such a situation, he was thinking about what he had been through and not me. He was the one who screwed up. This was his fault, and I was the one who had lost two of my close friends and then found out that my husband had been cheating on me and even had a daughter with another woman who happened to be so close to me, all in the span of just 1 month. Couldn't have been easy for me either, but I was still trying to deal with it with dignity. I explained all of this to him, but he just refused to understand and kept begging me to come back to him. After one point, it started getting on my nerves, so I just told him that he had to leave, and if he didn't, I would be forced to call the cops on him and have him removed from the property. So he left after that, but he told me that he would be back and he was not going to give up until I came back to him. He sounded pretty determined, but it honestly just doesn't make a difference to me anymore. He has broken me in ways I did not think was possible, but it's done now, and I feel like an idiot for even giving him a chance to explain. I don't know what I was thinking, but at least now I know the whole story, and I know that I cannot forgive him. Not now and not ever. Update 2. I just spoke to my lawyer. It has been a week and a half since I left my home, and he finally told me that the papers were going to be served to my husband tomorrow. I have mixed feelings about all of this. On one hand, I am relieved that we can finally start the divorce proceedings. It's been slightly delayed since my lawyer had to deal with some personal medical issues this past week. The work had been slow, but now we can finally start the proceedings, and I can just get it over with and try to move on with my life. On the other hand, I feel shattered because this beautiful chapter of my life, which had been beautiful so far, is coming to an end for such an ugly reason. I was already finding it really difficult to cope with the loss of two of my friends, and now I have to deal with a divorce as well. So, that's slightly sad, but I'm trying to find the silver lining. That's the only way I can get through all of this, and I hope that the divorce procedure isn't as emotionally draining as life recently has been. Update 3. Hi, so Matthew was served with the divorce papers today. The first thing that he chose to do was visit me again, probably hoping that speaking to me in person would make me change my mind. He has been texting me and trying to call me ever since I told him to leave, but I went back to ignoring him. I also blocked everybody from his family because I did not have anything left to say to these people anymore. All of them have been trying to convince me to go back to Matthew, and it tells me everything that I need to know. They have only ever cared about Matthew, not me. The love that his family had shown me was for Matthew's wife and not me as a person. So, I blocked everybody who had been telling me to go back to him because if they really wanted the best for me, they would understand that what Matthew did was horribly wrong, and lying to me and keeping it a secret was even worse. So, they would understand why I wanted to leave and why I'm not staying in that marriage anymore. Instead, they refused to understand my point of view and continued to harp on that the two of us were great together and we had been together for so long. It did not make sense to leave over something like this. My mother-in-law actually said that since Jackie was gone, I had nothing to worry about. I can't believe a human being could say something horrible about another person, especially after being so close for so long. I don't know if Jackie was a good person or not, but what my mother-in-law said was really below the belt. Anyway, that's pretty much the last straw for me, and then I blocked them all. But coming back to what happened today, after Matthew found out that I was actually going through with the divorce, he showed up at my parents' house. My dad was the one who was in the living room when he showed up, and as soon as he frantically started ringing the doorbell and banging on the door, demanding that we open up, my dad told him that he had to leave or he would call the cops. But instead of just leaving, Matthew decided that he was going to stay and create even more trouble. So he told my father to bring it on, and said that he was not leaving until he had talked to me and convinced me to cancel the proceedings. I guess he forgot that he was speaking to my father and not me. My dad did not have a soft corner for him like I did, and he went through with his threat. He had told him that he would call the cops, and that's what he did. So, Matthew was forcibly removed from our property. He didn't even go respectfully. He went kicking and screaming. It was just really embarrassing for him, and I was watching it all from my room, not even bothering to go out because that would just lead to more trouble anyway. He was taken away, or rather dragged away, and that was that. I'm actually pretty relieved that my dad dealt with it and did not allow me to deal with it because no matter what, I still have a soft corner for him, and that would have made it very difficult for me to report him. At least he got what he deserved. Update 4. I've been blocked by Matthew. Yep, that happened. I just find it really funny because I did not block him, he did. I can't imagine why he would do so when I'm already ignoring him and not bothering him at all. It'll just make it difficult for us to communicate directly during the divorce. That's it. Ultimately, it's his decision. Well, his decision was influenced by his family. His mother sent me an email after that day when we called the cops on him, and he was forcibly removed from our property. She mentioned in the email that she was incredibly disappointed that our family would do something like this and treat him like a criminal when he was only trying to get me back. She was acting like we were the villains for doing what any other family in our place would have done. She did not even seem to care for the fact that it was Matthew who had been acting unhinged and had spoken in a very harsh tone to my father. It's not like he hadn't been warned. My father had told him that if he didn't leave, he would call the cops on him. He had been warned, and yet he chose to stay there. After that, we were not responsible for what happened to him. He was trying to compensate for his mistakes in the past, in her opinion. She was basically just playing the victim and said that she couldn't believe that in spite of having such a close relationship for so many years, my family put him through something like this and I would sit by and allow it to happen. She expressed how disappointed she was that I hadn't even bothered to come out of the house to check on him and make sure that he was all right even as he was being taken away. So, she told me towards the end of the email that her son would not be bothering me anymore, and that she was going to make sure that he moved on from me as quickly as he could. Well, good luck to her with that. God knows I want the same things as well for the both of us. But anyway, game on. Now I'm only going to focus on getting what I deserve from the divorce and nothing else. No sympathy, no mercy, and definitely no soft corners anymore. Now on to the next story. Story 3. After losing our son to stillbirth, my husband is upset we're having triplet daughters, considering divorce. Am I overreacting? I, 27F, have been with my husband, 29M, for 5 years, married for 3 of those years. Our marriage was perfect and we were so happy. It felt like our entire life was perfect. Church on Sunday, a loving husband, a beautiful home, all of it. A few months into our marriage, I became pregnant, and my husband and I were overjoyed, and so was the rest of our family. My husband was especially happy after finding out our baby was a boy, as he'd always told me he wanted at least one son. I even started to try to attempt to repair my relationship with my mother so our son could have a relationship with his grandparents. I had originally cut off most contact with my mother due to how she treated my brother when he married his husband, though my brother said he was all right with my decision to try to get her back in my life, since he still has love for her and my baby was her first grandchild. However, our son ended up stillborn and it broke me. I fell into a depression and even at one point considered taking my life, but my husband was there for me during all of it, and we got through the grief. Our marriage felt stronger than ever, and life started slowly feeling beautiful again, even if it no longer felt perfect. About 5 months ago, I found out I'm pregnant again and then found out soon after that we're having triplets. My husband and I were over the moon, and he was the most doting and loving husband, since we had always said we wanted 2 to 3 children. We agreed we wouldn't try for any more children after this. Because of our and our family's excitement for the triplets, we decided to throw a baby shower and gender reveal party. We trusted my brother with the genders of the triplets, and he bought some confetti cannons with the colored streamers inside. The baby shower went wonderfully with my parents, in-laws, my brother and his husband and their daughter, and tons of friends and extended family. It was like a dream come true, and I was so excited for the gender reveal. I don't care what the gender of our babies was. I just wanted healthy little babies, but my husband was clearly excited for potentially 3 sons. When the time came, me, my husband, and my brother all shot a confetti cannon, and all 3 shot out pink confetti. I was so excited and so was my brother, but my husband screamed at the top of his lungs and hit the table in front of us, hitting it so hard that it actually broke. He screamed at me that I was supposed to give him at least 1 son because I killed his first one. That's when I burst into tears. I had been so broken up about our son's stillbirth, and a part of me had felt it was my fault, and now he, my husband, the love of my life, was telling me that it was. My brother immediately stepped in and tried to get my husband to calm down, but my husband shoved my brother. So my brother instead pulled me inside, where I cried in the living room while my husband's mother tried to calm him down. I could hear him screaming outside about how 3 daughters is too many, how he doesn't want 4 kids, but he also wants a son. Ever since that moment, my husband has hardly talked to me. He's been sleeping in the guest room, and when we do interact, he's clearly upset and mad and tries to argue with me. I tried to talk to him about it and asked about how he'll be with our 3 daughters, but he spat at me and told me he will provide them shelter and food, but he isn't interested in daughters and doesn't plan to have a close relationship with them. That sealed the deal that I want to divorce him, and I cried myself to sleep last night. Earlier today, I confided in my mother and MAL about all this, but they told me I can't divorce my husband just because he wants a son. I don't want my daughters to grow up in an unloving household where their parents constantly argue and their father doesn't love them. The moment my husband said I killed our son, I felt as though I lost all love I had for him in an instant, and I don't want my daughters to be in that kind of household. However, both my mom and MIL say it's just natural for men to want sons and that at least he isn't saying he'll mistreat them. They treated this as absolute fact and acted as though I'm just a silly little girl who doesn't know anything. I felt incredibly small and stupid. I don't know what to do. My mother and MIL make me feel like maybe I'm overreacting to my husband's behavior, but my brother says this is not normal, as he and his husband are both men who absolutely love their daughter. I'm also not sure of what I'll do with myself if I divorce my husband. I don't work and I'm not sure how I'll be able to find a job that can support me and 3 babies all on my own, or how I'll make time for all of them when I have to work. I feel so lost and helpless. I'm torn on what to do because I worry divorce will be too brash of a decision and that maybe my mother and MIL are right. I don't know what I should do. Update 1. I didn't expect to have an update so soon, but after reading everyone's comments, I decided to take action immediately and went to my brother's house. We talked for hours through the night and came up with a plan. I am going to divorce my husband. He's shown the kind of man he is, and I don't want to live in or raise daughters in that kind of environment. I'm going to move in with my brother and his husband during all this. He and his husband have a nice, large house where I can have my own room and a nursery for the triplets. I originally worried that perhaps myself and 3 babies would be overwhelming or a burden to him and my brother-in-law, but they assured me they would love to have us there. I knew everything would be okay when my brother even offered to have a baby monitor put in their bedroom so he could help if more than one of the triplets woke up during the night. My brother-in-law has a nice, high-paying job and my brother works from home, so I will have a stable environment, and my brother will help with his nieces. My own niece is excited for us to live with her. The current plan is I will live with my brother and his husband for a while, and once my babies are old enough where I feel comfortable putting them in daycare, which my brother-in-law has offered to pay for, then I can try to find a job of my own where I can save up money and eventually move into a nice place of my own with my daughters. I'm so thankful for my brother and his husband. They truly feel like angels. My brother and I are also going to go no contact with my mother. My brother and I discussed her behavior with us growing up, how she treated him when he came out and also got married, and how she's treated me these past few days. We decided this was the best course of action as we've given her many chances in our lives to become more stable and kind, but she's always refused them, and we want our daughters to grow up with a loving family. When I knew my husband had left for church this morning, my brother-in-law, and I went to my house and got all my important things, such as documents, clothes, and things that are special to me, as well as all the baby things. My brother-in-law's mother watched my niece while we did all this. She's a wonderful woman and has offered to be a grandmother to my own babies, which I happily accepted. I will admit that I cried. I've cried a lot lately, but mostly happy tears. Because my brother and I didn't go to church, my ladies' Bible study group texted me and asked if we were all right and if we needed anything. I texted them back and told them the truth and what happened, and they were all horrified. They told me they support me and are proud of me for taking action and are now even planning a bake sale at the church to help raise money for me and my babies. Also, apparently when my husband went out to lunch after church with his men's Bible group, one of the other members, who is a husband to one of my friends in my Bible group, found out what happened and yelled at my husband so much that he cried. I got a little bit of joy out of hearing about that, not gonna lie. My pastor even called me and asked if I'm okay, and he let me know that I'll always have people who support me at my church, which I'm very grateful for. After my husband came home from church and saw that most of my stuff was gone, he blew up my phone, but my brother-in-law called him for me and said that he would pay for my husband to get therapy for his grief over our son and also told him to leave me alone. My husband has not tried to contact me since, and he has yet to give my brother-in-law an answer for his therapy offer. All in all, I'm so grateful for my brother and brother-in-law. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without them. I'm hopeful for the future, and while this isn't the kind of future I imagined for myself or my babies, this is definitely the best one I can currently give them. They say it takes a village, and my babies will definitely have a village full of love and support. Thank you and bless you to everyone who left comments supporting me. I'm grateful for all of them. I'm glad I could give you a very speedy and happy update. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I wanted to move out to fix our relationship, but when I told my BF, he beat me for hours until I was bleeding. Then his ex-wife, who had always been mean to me, revealed he did the same to her. Hello all, I, 31F, have been living with my boyfriend, 42M, for a little over 6 years. From the very start, everything moved so fast, and I jumped into a new life before thinking. There is so much to say about the 6-year history we have, mixed with good but a lot of bad. He is divorced with 2 kids. The kids were 10 and 8 when we started dating. Now they are 16 going on 17 and 14 going on 15. I have no kids and have never married, but I do have the best little pooch, who is now 13 years old. We have been good the last 6 to 8 weeks, so this may come as a surprise. No, there were no recent big fights. We have been going about life in this routine. I wake up, go to work, come straight home, walk our dogs. Oh, we just adopted a new pup 7 months ago. Cook dinner, clean up, shower, and then bedtime. I do this every day. My boyfriend doesn't have a conventional job, so he can go weeks or months without working. I have a stable 9 to 6 job Monday to Friday, so he's usually home while I'm at work. Today is the first time he is going to work since the year started. After 6 years with him, it has never been easy to talk about hard topics or my feelings. I always felt dismissed. To keep the peace, I always felt I had to play the part he expected and wanted. I can admit I am a bit of a people pleaser, and I do love very hard. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt and hoped for things to get better. At this point, I have isolated myself from my friends and family, and I don't even recognize myself anymore. I want to be a wife and mother more than anything, but I am afraid the way we are going is not leading there. I feel like my boyfriend is okay with just being boyfriend and girlfriend. I have given everything I can, helping with the kids, doing all the cooking and cleaning, and prioritizing him by giving him all of my free time. He gets sensitive when I try to make plans that don't involve him, and usually it leads to big fights until he guilts me to the point that I just gave up on a social life. As I get closer to my 40s, I'm freaking out. Time is of the essence, and I don't want to wake up in my 40s with regret. There is so much to say about the dynamic, but long story short, I feel like the only way things will change is if there is a big change. We are both equally comfortable in this routine. I know I am not living life the way I truly want. I have tried to bring up ways to change the dynamic, but it usually leads to him telling me things that sound nice, but it never happens. He's all talk and no action. When I try to act on the things we talk about, it leads to huge blow-up fights. I do love him so much, but I just can't live life like this. My sister is moving, so there is an opportunity to take over her lease. My plan is to leave before he gets home from work and to write a letter explaining myself. I don't want to break up, but I need him to start taking me and this relationship seriously. I want us to be intentional and actually do the things we talk about. I wish I could talk to him instead of doing things this way, but I am afraid of a big fight happening. So, am I the a-hole for secretly moving out while he's at work? Update 1, March 22, 2025. I am overwhelmed with how many responses the original post got. I was mixed with emotions after reading it all. I ultimately needed time to process before writing it on Reddit, so I took most of the advice, and I decided to wait for him to get home to talk instead of leaving a letter and leaving while he was at work. Before I get into the update, I want to address a lot of people's concerns on there being a possible DV situation and toxic relationship. You were all right. Update. I decided to pack up my car with all of my important items. I cleaned the house, cooked, showered, and wrote out all my thoughts on what I wanted to say because I tend to lose track of my thoughts when I'm in high-tense conflicts. I wanted to make sure he understood why I felt the need to move out after 6 years. He got home around 8:30, 9 p.m., and I asked if he could join me on the couch to talk. He immediately started to get anxious, asking to hurry up and get to the point. I started to read the letter, and I couldn't help but cry as I read. When I got to the part, "I have decided it is best for me to move out, but if you want to work on our relationship, I am open to it," he snapped. He snatched the letter out of my hand and ripped it up. He spat in my face and called me trash. At this point, I was trying to get my dogs and leave the house. He grabbed me by my hair and started hitting me. I tried my best to defend myself. I was screaming for help, hoping the neighbors would hear me, but no one came to my rescue. I eventually lost the strength to fight back and just laid there on the floor, hoping he would get tired and stop kicking and punching me. My dogs were hysterical. My youngest dog tried to bite him and protect me, but all it did was get him more upset. I used my body to shield my dog from getting hit. By the time he stopped and I looked at the time, it was midnight. He had locked himself in the room, and I could hear him crying and screaming for me to please forgive him. I didn't have the strength for anything. I sat in my blood and tears, numb and dead inside. I still can't believe what happened, and I am so disappointed in myself for letting the relationship last as long as it did. There were times he showed aggression, but he always found a way to convince me it will never happen again. When I thought he finally went to sleep around 3 a.m., I took my dogs and left. I went to my sister's apartment, about 40 minutes away. Luckily, she was staying at her boyfriend's house, so I was alone. I still have not found the strength to tell anyone what happened. I called out of work and stayed inside the apartment while my wounds healed. It's been about 2 weeks, and I am now seeking professional help, and I'm planning on taking myself to the doctors to get checked out. I know I need to tell someone what happened, but I am feeling so embarrassed. Thank you all for the kind words and for the ones who advised to talk to him, EFU. I hope anyone dealing with a similar relationship can learn from me. Follow your gut and leave. Don't let outside opinions doubt your gut. Edit. I have videos and pictures of the injuries. I know I have to go to the police, but honestly, I'm in this psychological warfare. He has 2 kids, and I feel like I'm responsible if their dad goes to jail. This is something I know I need to overcome, and that's why I'm taking the necessary steps to mentally prepare myself by seeking professional help. If anyone has any recommendations on how to go about this, I would really appreciate it. This all feels like a nightmare that I just want to be over. I haven't told any loved ones yet because it will just make everything more real. Update 2, March 23, 2025. Hi everyone. Please keep reading. Something insane happened last night. I just wanted to start by saying I am so grateful for all of the support during this. After reading everyone's comments, and yes, I may not respond to every comment, but I do take time to read everything coming in, because Reddit and you all here are the only people I have told about this, and it's helping me put everything that has happened in perspective. I have been doing more and more research on DV. Before this relationship, I have luckily never experienced a toxic relationship. All of my past relationships have always ended amicably with love and respect. I never had to deal with any boyfriends screaming at me, intense jealousy, etc., so it was very hard for me to even notice what I was in. My ex was very good at talking. We always used to joke that he should have become a lawyer because of how convincing he knows he can be. I am in a place where I am facing everything head-on now instead of hiding in my sister's apartment, hiding from the world. I can admit I am a survivor. What happened was not my fault, and I want to apologize for how I came across, blaming the Redditors for bad advice. The emotion I am feeling now is rage. I was trying to find someone to blame for what happened to me, and the only person to blame is the psychopath loser ex of mine. I decided I'm going to the police today. I was feeling bad for him, which I found out is called Stockholm Syndrome. His kids are 14 and 16, and I was worried that I would be the reason they wouldn't have a father around. Taking everyone's concerns for the kids into consideration, I knew it was my responsibility to protect them from this happening to them. I called the kid's mother last night to tell her everything that happened, just to give as much context before going into the update. The mother and my relationship started out bad. She did not like me or respect me. She did not agree with the big age gap and always made it a point to say I was the young bimbo trying to take the father's money, even though I have always worked and paid for everything I have. I have never asked for him to ever financially take care of me. Over the 6 years, we have become more friendly. She eventually stopped bad-mouthing me to her kids and everyone else in the family, but I always felt the need to prove myself to all of his family and friends. So, I called the mother to let her know what happened and that I was planning on going to the police. I even sent her pictures and videos of my black eyes, cuts and bruises, and bald spot from hair being pulled out. What happened next literally changed everything for me. I went from being sad and depressed to now feeling nothing but anger. I am shaking while I write this because I'm still in shock. She responded with, "Well, I knew this would eventually happen because it happened to her." She went on to tell me the reason they got divorced was because he was beating her in front of her kids, and after 10 years of marriage, she finally got a lawyer and divorced him. She had multiple restraining orders that he did not follow. He got arrested 2 to 3 times but never convicted of anything because she dropped charges, not wanting her kids to be without a father. I am furious. She was undocumented, and her marriage was going to help her become a citizen. She ultimately got her citizenship from the process of VAWA through marriage to an abusive legal permanent resident. I am in so much anger because no one told me or warned me. I feel this could have been avoided if someone would have tried to warn me. So now, no more Mr. Nice Guy. EFF this guy, he is going to jail. I will be making sure he never does this to anyone again. I will keep you guys updated on the charges, etc. Thank you all for the support once again. Update 3, March 23, 2025. When I made the original post, I had no idea it would lead to DV. I hope by me sharing it could help someone who is in a similar situation. I would like to think this a community of kindness and open-minded to each one's struggles. I know I struggle with putting into words how I feel and what's going on, especially in difficult conflicts. I might not be choosing the right words or expressing myself correctly, but I am human, having a human experience. I'm doing my best. What's funny is now I find myself explaining myself to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. Thank you to everyone who was kind and supportive. It is because of you guys I found the strength to go to the police. I was going through so many emotions after finding out last night my ex's wife had been through the same thing. She never once warned me. I'm not trying to blame anyone for the situation. The only person to blame is the loser ex of mine. His ex-wife was undocumented, and she stayed married for 10 years while getting abused to stay in the country with her kids. She ended up going through VAWA through marriage to an abusive legal permanent resident. I wish she would have tried to warn me somehow, but I don't blame her. I'm just feeling so many emotions after this situation. Now I'm dealing with anger. So, to conclude, it's probably best for my mental health to stay off Reddit and focus on reality. I have gone to the police. I will be seeing a therapist/psychiatrist tomorrow and putting in all the work to heal myself inside and out. I hope my story can shed light on the complexity of DV. And once again, thank you to all who were kind and supportive. Edit. This was a response to a comment that I thought would give more context on the ex-wife. I'm trying my best to not be emotional in my responses, and it's way too much writing to do if I sat here trying to explain everything that happened in the last 6 years. But his ex was horrible to me when we first started dating, and I struggled with understanding why. I used to hear them arguing for hours on a daily basis. When things started to get serious and I moved in, I tried to reach out to her, woman to woman, so we could have a formal meeting since I would be living in a house her kids would be at part-time. She declined all of my outreach. In the first year, I used to take the kids shopping to get her Mother's Day gift, Christmas gifts, and even a birthday gift. I was trying so hard to get accepted by his family, including the ex-wife. I wanted there to be a peaceful, loving relationship with all of us. I hate conflict and try to avoid it at all costs. She would badmouth me, call me a young bimbo who's trying to take all of the father's money, when I never asked him for financial support. I always worked and had my own things going for myself. So, to find out what she went through, I was shocked. There were even times she tried to get back with him, and he would show me the messages. After a few years, she saw I was sticking around and slowly stopped all the hate, and we began to be more friendly. She had so many opportunities to share what happened and why they got divorced, but she didn't. There were no signs. The only signs were just weird, inconsistent stories. Looking back, I can see I was naive, and I should have never involved myself in this weird family dynamic. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I finally broke up with my boyfriend who tried using me for money and kept pushing me to take care of his daughter like she was mine. My F37 boyfriend, Ben, M, 42, has been asking weird questions and expecting me to do things that would go against my plans for my own family. Things have been working out for me in the past few years, but this year has been amazing. I decided to cut down on my daily workload a bit after I got 3 accounts that are helping me reach some financial goals. I'm planning on buying a house for my family. I downsized my current living situation, renting, after my kids went to live temporarily with my parents for this semester while I completed my certified training and graduated from my present program in uni. My new place isn't as nice looking as other places, but the price was a good cut from living expenses for me. I can both walk to the office and uni, and I hardly have to move my car for anything. I'm saving money that I'm putting in an account for my kids. Ben absolutely hates my place. It's clean and in a relatively safe area. It's just that it's a mix of a student area and old families, and traffic can get messy from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and some houses are simple and elegant, and some look like tacky add-ons. I don't care if my place doesn't look nice on the outside. It's not like it's an eyesore, and it's up to me to make it livable on the inside. I had 2 other choices. Choice A cost $200 less than my previous place with access to a community pool and 2 bedrooms. I don't need more than 1 bedroom at the moment, and I don't really have time to enjoy the pool. Choice B was a bit lower, but about 45 minutes away. It was beautiful and close to the school where Ben's kid went. He did hint at it, but he would have needed to get on the lease and come up with the difference between this place and my new studio apartment that I chose. Also, living together is a major decision, and right now I really need to focus on my career and education. He said he understood, but he didn't take it well. He told me that his daughter was disappointed because she would have liked a nice place to hang out. Ben lives in an apartment. It's an average place with no problems or issues, so what he said came out as a weird remark. Fast forward and he started asking questions. First, he asked if I would be interested in partnering with him for a business idea. I said no because I already made a commitment to self-fund my own venture. Second, I'm not familiar with the industry that he wanted to break into. Then he began noticing things about things that I owned. I'm not hiding that I'm financially stable, but I don't spend a lot. He did notice that I bought a few nice items and started telling jokes that felt harmless. Then he said that I was loaded and that his daughter would be an awesome protege. I stayed quiet, to be honest, because I think he might have been offended. But there's no way in hell that I would allow entrance to what I've built to anyone other than my kids. Also, he said that I should treat his daughter as very special because I only had boys and she's my chance to have a girl in the family. His words. Don't get me wrong, she's a good kid. I have never missed out on gifting her nice and thoughtful presents on her birthdays and the holidays. But his words created a sense of discomfort and disgust for me. It felt like reversed sexism, and I told him she and I have a decent relationship, but there's no way that I will give her access to my money if that means to treat her as my own. I know this sounds very wrong, but it's how I feel. She's not the kind of kid who's a bully or nasty or anything, but she's not my child, and every time that he asks for things, I feel like he's trying to get me to take from my kids to give to her. It happened again when I gave her a short-term weekend job. The office cleaning lady wasn't available, so I hired his daughter for a Saturday cleaning. She did a good job. I paid her and took her to the mall to get her some makeup that she wanted. And she came back next weekend. When he picked her up, he started joking that she would start from the bottom and rise to be a top executive like any other kid at their family business. I didn't say anything because she was there, but I did approach him later on and mentioned it to him. I tried to be gentle, but it was important for us to at least discuss expectations. His initial reaction wasn't what I expected. To be fair, I think he got nervous or embarrassed, but I didn't like his reaction. So he said something about me potentially putting her in my will. I'd like to clarify that he laughed, so I think it was a joke. But I also think that he wouldn't have clarified if I'd gone along. I simply stayed quiet and told him that I cared about his daughter, but it isn't fair to create any expectations. I've worked so hard to give my kids a better future, and it's taken me over 10 years, and the fact that he only sees the results without taking my past and my ordeal into consideration feels disrespectful. I also mentioned how he wanted me to change my budget and plans for a different property, while he knew that moving together isn't an option, and that he stayed silent when I mentioned he would have needed to pay the difference on the lease. Also, I mentioned that I would not make unnecessary sacrifices. Nothing else was said. He stormed out of my car, started walking with his hand in his pocket and a weak smirk. I had to drive slowly next to him to convince him to get back inside the car because I hate Dr. David Banner scenes. He looked like a kicked puppy. After I dropped him off, he has been sending me texts about being disconnected from what a blended family actually is, showing that I think his daughter is inferior, being a hypocrite, and bullying. This has disturbed my inner peace because I'm just defending whatever legacy I have built, and having to do it against my partner just doesn't feel right. We talked about it and he apologized, and I did the same in case I was too harsh. He said we could find some middle ground and I was open to it. When he talked about helping him create a business for his daughter, I began to get angry because, again, it would be sweat equity for me. I declined because I did all the sweating I had to, but it was for me and what he's asking just isn't fair. It's a responsibility, and I truly like to do things appropriately. I don't want to say yes and do it half-assed, and I don't want to work for free. I also don't want to mix anything between business and pleasure because it's my network and my contacts, and again, it could go very nice and well, or it could be a shit show, and I don't want that. I'm also concerned that he will ramp up and keep asking and asking for things. He said that if I don't help, he will feel like we will never build anything together. I said he needed to hire a consultant, but he stayed quiet. So I told him that he shouldn't place the responsibility of his present situation on me. He said that I'm probably blinded by my success, but that one day I'll wake up single and lonely. I asked if he was threatening to leave me, and he said, "I'm not acting like a helpful partner." I asked for a break and he freaked out. I'm just trying to keep my mental health in check because his constant asking and jokes have made me anxious. Also, I'm very angry and thinking that he just wants a handout. I texted him this morning asking to talk. I want to break up. He said he hopes I'm not planning on dumping him, because it would mean that I just tricked him into a break. He posted something about his own mental health today. I am for deciding to end things. We haven't talked yet, but that's my intention. I don't see his kid as inferior at all. I just want to keep my money out of it. Edit. To the judgmental people calling me names for letting my kids live with my parents for this semester only, please enlighten me. Would it be a great option to reject a good opportunity and finish my education to gain your approval? Right? Because not doing my best to give them a good financial start in life is a better option. Also, where did you get that I'm an absent mother? Did I say that I don't see them or spend time with them? To those who offer advice, thank you. To those who disagree but differ, jump to mothers should not do what they can to secure their kids' financial future and stay poor but at home. Thanks. Update. We formally broke up today, and he made it very difficult to focus on our conversation. He interrupted me every 5 seconds and was in denial for almost half of it. I asked to meet at a small restaurant, a public place strategy to avoid any type of drama. I tried to be respectful, but definitely wanted to bring up my uneasiness and feelings about his behavior. He tried to brush it off at first, but when I insisted, he evaded the subject. I told him what he already knows. My children are my priority as a sole provider, and I want to ensure that they have their needs covered. There were some comments on my other post that I had thought about but hadn't verbalized, like what would he inherit my kids? Or what's his plan for his own kid? I know he doesn't have much, but that's no excuse. When I established the comparison between what he wanted for his kid versus what he would give to mine, his face changed like I was greedy and he was insulted. He said, "My kids don't have a dad and that he can provide a paternal figure." This triggered me so much that I had to try and keep my volume in check. My thought is that being there like a piece of furniture in exchange for financial benefits for his own kid is acceptable to him. I would have loved for my kids to have a decent dad, but that's just not in the cards. And right now I'm better off alone than with Ben. I was so angry that he kept asking me to calm down. He said he's leaving his dad for good knowledge on life in general because there are things that only he can offer since her mom is too secular. Whatever that means. And I didn't ask him. I said that we needed to break up, and he immediately got upset and left our table. I thought he was gone, but he came back later and claimed he only went to use the restroom. I told him that I can't share any part of my life with him after he behaved like a gold digger, and that even if I was able to get past this, I would never even consider getting back together because his intentions are entitled and dishonest. All in all, I'm just glad that we weren't alone. He has high blood pressure issues, real, I've seen the medication, and sometimes I've suspected some types of mental health issues, going from 0 to 100 for things that seemed incongruent. He said he was truly sorry if he offended me and said that he felt tricked and betrayed. That breaks are meant for introspection and to seek improvement and not to abandon a relationship, and that my actions will have an impact on his daughter because she really likes me. I offered to have a last call/text with her if he agreed, but his answer was, "No, F you. You don't get to say anything to her." He said that I'm caught up in my new mainstream life. Whatever that means. It's offensive considering that I've worked for my financial stability after a few years of things not being great. He told me to go suck on my colleagues' dicks, but immediately apologized. I told him I'm not surprised at his behavior since it shows me that he seems to think sex can solve anything. I also said that since he was being gross and vulgar, I'm learning just now that men like him are unfuckable homosexual handout seekers and insincere, and that I will never date someone who is not financially stable ever again because this is a huge lesson. I wish that I could say that I had left him sitting alone at the table, but he left first. When I was about to get my handbag to pay for my food, he rushed to get his backpack and walked off really quick. I blocked him everywhere, but I already changed my locks. He never had a key nor did he stay over, but I'm just being cautious. He called one of our friends in common to vent about me, and she ended up angry with him because he was very insistent that I had mistreated him, and she told him that she needed to hear my side of the story. She and I had a long conversation, and she told me that she can't blame me because our group of friends had been noticing the imbalance in our relationship and how he seemed comfortable including himself in conversations about business and success when in the 16 years that she's known him, he's never gotten anything done. So that's my update. I also blocked him on social media and messaging apps. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Mom wished my sister had married my husband instead of me, and my sister's been coming over when I'm gone, walking around in towels. Turns out my husband actually can't stand her. I am upset at my mom and my sister because of something my mother said, but everyone around me feels I'm overreacting. Please be brutally honest in telling me if I'm being insecure or if my mom and my husband are wrong in this. Let me give you a bit of backstory. My husband, James, 34M, and I, 29F, were neighbors growing up. My sister, Fran, 34F, was in the same grade as my husband. Everyone knew my sister in school because she is very smart and beautiful. James had a huge crush on her and all of us knew about it. He asked her out for senior prom, and Fran shot him down in front of the whole school. They still remained friends, but he moved to a different state for college, and we did not hear much from him except seeing him when he came back for holidays. James and I were never friends growing up since I was in middle school when this happened. In fact, I was much younger than both of them, and they would actively avoid me or involving me in their hangouts and activities. I went to a good college and got my first job in the same city as James. My mom suggested I should contact James since I did not know anyone there. We became friends, and 3 years later we got married. We both have high-paying jobs and love our life. We moved back to our hometown during COVID as James's mom had health issues, and our jobs allowed us to work remotely. Fran also had a pretty good life. She married when she was 23, and her husband was pretty well off. 2 years ago, Fran discovered that he was cheating on her for almost the entire duration of their marriage with multiple partners, and she decided to break things off. Fran moved back with my mom. Fran had not worked for the entire duration of their marriage and was expecting to gain significant alimony from the divorce. However, due to complications regarding the prenup, she barely got anything and is struggling financially. She got a job but is barely able to afford her own place and continues living with my mom. James and I were very supportive of her during the whole process. Since James and Fran were friends growing up, they both have a special bond. They have their inside jokes and stories, and I sometimes feel like a third wheel when we all meet. However, James keeps his distance and has never given me any reason to believe that he has lingering feelings for her. Fran, on the other hand, constantly visits us like 2 to 3 times a week and ends up staying for dinner and sleeping in our guest room. I don't mind her coming over, but I do not like the fact that she talks more to James than with me. Also, she always comes over when I am not at home, and I often find them sitting next to each other on the sofa and watching TV when I get home. It sort of reminds me of my childhood where I was locked out of our basement when Fran had friends over, and I would feel left out. Fran is also too comfortable around James and walks around the house in just a towel after her shower when James is around or sleeps in her underwear in the guest room without locking the door. I have voiced my concerns to her, but she says that we are family and she does not care. I have also voiced my concerns to James, and he does make efforts now to explain stories and inside jokes if Fran makes them. The main issue happened this weekend. I was hanging out with my mom and Fran last weekend, and Fran was recollecting stories about how James would do her homework and do chores for her growing up. She said, "He was so much in love with me, and I felt guilty taking advantage of him." My mom jokingly said to her, "I wish you had the wits to marry James than your loser husband, and you would have not been in this situation." Fran smiled after hearing that and nodded, but I was hurt by the comment. I protested to my mom that James is my husband, and I do not want her to make such comments about him. My mom doubled down and said that she feels like it because both James and I are high earners while Fran is struggling, so it would make sense if Fran was married to James and I would be fine since I do not need James to support me financially. She kept on saying that it was a hypothetical and just wants both her daughters to be happy. I did not like those comments and told them to not speak like that about James and my marriage in general. Fran chimed in and told me that I should not take the comments so personally and I am being too sensitive. However, I had a fight with both of them and I left. When I came home and told James, he also sided with my mom and Fran and told me that her mom just made a harmless joke. I also raised the issue of Fran's behavior around our house, and he told me that this is between me and my sister, and he is not going to tell Fran about what she can or cannot wear in our house. However, I am just feeling really bad since the situation, and despite everyone apologizing to me, things just don't feel right. Am I wrong here in reacting the way I did? Or does everyone else have a point and I should be more secure about my relationship with James? Comments where the OP has replied. Comment: NTA. Your mother's comment was inappropriate and disrespectful towards your marriage, and it's concerning that your husband is dismissing your feelings about Fran's behavior. It's not about insecurity. It's about wanting respect in your relationship and home. P. This has been a pattern through my life. Due to the age difference, Fran has always treated me like a kid. I just felt insulted that my mom completely ignored my feelings while making such comments. However, a part of me also has been jealous of Fran because of all the attention she got, and I was the nerdy little weird girl in our family. Comment: I'm waiting for Fran to try to attempt something with your husband within 3 to 6 months. Also, you need to tell her no more sleepovers or just showing up, and put some clothes on for God's sake. And this is a firm boundary, and no, you don't care if they think you're overreacting. This is how it's going to be. OP. All these comments have me really alarmed. I am going to talk to my husband regarding this. I do not want to be accusatory, but this whole situation has made me really insecure, and I was barely able to sleep last night. I trust him with all my heart, but I really am rethinking all the things Fran has done around him and how she has undermined and belittled my feelings on every occasion. As for my mom, I got a half-ass apology from her last night about how she just blurted out something stupid and how I am overreacting to all this, and she only wishes the best for both her daughters. Update: October 22nd, 2024. Thanks, everyone, for all your support on my previous post. To summarize what happened, my mom made a really off-putting comment that she wished my sister, Fran, was married to my husband, James. I got really mad, and my husband also tried to undermine my feelings and told me I was overreacting to a harmless joke. Sorry for the long post, but a lot of you were messaging me for an update and wanted to tell what happened. The comments really made me paranoid, and I did see everyone's point that James may have just married me because of his crush on Fran. This really shot up my anxiety, and I started snooping around. My husband literally makes me check his phone for new messages when he is not around, so I knew there was nothing to hide there. However, I was spooked by how my sister always knows when I am not at home and why James and Fran are always sitting on the same couch when I come home. I tried talking to my husband, and he told me that my feelings were valid. However, he also said that Fran is going through a tough time and refused to say anything bad about my mom and Fran. Last Friday, I went to the gym as usual in the evening, and when I came home, Fran was sitting in the living room while James was cooking dinner. I got a bit angry and asked her what she is doing here. She said she had no plans for the night and she came to hang out with us. It really annoyed me, and I told her that I wanted to spend a quiet weekend with my husband and if she can come some other time. She could see I was upset. She started saying how her mom was just being silly and I need to let it go since it was just a joke. I told her I did not find it funny, and we got into a fight. She said that I am always an insecure, annoying kid and no wonder no one liked me. It really hurt me, but James stepped in and told Fran that she needs to leave. I have never seen James be so forceful with Fran. Fran muttered some unpleasant things to James and then left. I was in tears by the end of the whole thing, and James was consoling me. I was really upset and spent the night in our room alone. In the morning, I prepared notes on all the things I wanted to ask James. Your comments really helped me get my thoughts straight. I know I was being very insecure, but after reading the comments, I really started questioning if James really married me for me or just because I was Fran's sister and looked like her. People called me Dollar Store Fran in high school. James and I had a long conversation, and I told him my anxieties and insecurities. I told him how it makes me feel that he spends so much time with Fran when she visits us and they have their own inside jokes. I asked him if he still has feelings for her. He was calm and smiling the whole time. He told me that he will tell me the truth but does not want me to hate him for it later. He said that he knows Fran used him all through their school days because she knew he liked her. When he went to college, Fran still tried to keep in touch with him, but putting distance between them made him realize how badly she treated him, and he decided to just cut contact with her so that he can work on himself. That was the reason he rarely visited us when he used to come for holidays and stopped being friends with Fran. I told him that it bothered me that he chose Fran before me and ignored me during our childhood. That was the reason I always had that doubt if I was his second choice. He said that I was 13 when he went to college, and if he would have liked me instead of Fran at that age, we would be having a different problem. He told me that when I contacted him, he thought that I must be like Fran and was not very enthusiastic to meet me. However, after we hung out for a few times, he realized I am nothing like Fran. We soon became close, started dating, and got married after a few years. He told me that Fran was married by then, and he saw that I always put Fran on a pedestal and would get jealous when Fran posted vacation pictures or the new shiny things her husband bought for her. That was the reason he never told me that he does not like hanging around Fran, as he feels that for me, Fran was always the North Star. He told me that he has always kept his distance from Fran, and she was a non-issue since we would meet her only a few times every year. However, after her divorce, he did not know how to act. He said that he was grateful to me for uprooting our lives and moving back to our hometown for his mom's health. He wanted to do the same and take care of my family when Fran got divorced. He supported her in every way he could for me, even though he realized it meant spending a lot of time with her and listening to her bring up all the memories from high school that he wants to forget. I told him it bothered me that Fran came to our house as often as she does and generally in the evenings when I go to the gym. He told me that he also finds it odd that she knows my gym routine and always comes on evenings when I am not at home. However, he told me that he has always kept his distance from her, and if she did anything that would raise an alarm, he would have told me immediately. She just makes him watch all the old movies or TV shows they watched growing up and gossips endlessly about their high school friends. He told me I need to trust him, and if I want him to be the bad guy and ask Fran to not visit us often, he can do that for me. However, he knows that I will eventually make up with my mom and Fran and does not want to blame him for being mean to Fran. However, he told me he will not tell Fran what to wear around the house as it would be creepy if it came from him. I felt I got all the assurance I needed from James, and I will never doubt how amazing of a husband he has been. My mom and Fran visited us on Sunday, and my mom profusely apologized to me. She told me she does not want me to feel bad for her comment, and she would never wish anything bad on my marriage. She meant to say that James was a great guy and she hopes Fran can find someone like him one day. Fran was a bit sour but apologized to us for all the name-calling on Friday and told us that it's just her hormones. She said that she likes hanging out with her sister and her best friend and hence comes to our house. I told her she is welcome to come anytime she wants but to call ahead of time in case James and I have plans for the evening, and she agreed. I really want to move past this issue, but I do want to put some firm boundaries on when Fran can come to our house and hang out with James alone, as I know it bothers him too. Overall, things are good now. I am glad my worst fears did not come true, but I do feel I need some therapy in order to deal with my insecurities. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Caught my fiancé, who had been cheating on me, but my parents wanted me to forgive him. But then I also exposed Dad's affair, and Mom left him after 30 years. I was to be married in July. 2 months ago, I came home from a work trip to find my ex-fiancé in bed with my BFF sister. I kicked him out, canceled the wedding, and warned him I would get rid of his stuff if he didn't come get it all. Weeks later, I dumped it all on the curbside with a free sign, sold or donated everything he gave me, and pawned the ring. I blocked him everywhere. I called the cops on him when he showed up, after I gave his stuff away, banging on my door. I called them again when he turned up at my workplace and made a scene and called them on his family when they showed up en masse to plead his case. I didn't go scorched earth on my ex-BFF sister. I did tell her husband I caught her in bed with my ex. Last I heard, she'd been kicked out of the house and was back living with her parents. My ex-BFF tried talking me into giving them both a chance to explain. What? No. Then she got angry at me for ruining her sister's relationship, called me petty and cold-hearted. So I kicked her to the curb, too. I don't want dishonest people that are blasé about betrayal in my life. This encounter no doubt simmered under my skin until I unleashed on my parents. Maybe that's the reason, because it lingered. I was so harsh with them last week. I met my parents for dinner. I took a date with me to the restaurant, hoping his being there would waylay any discussion about my failed engagement. My parents have been pressuring me to work things out with the ex. He's so sorry. I owe it to him to talk with him, give him 5 minutes to explain himself. She meant nothing to him, he made a mistake. I'm cruel for shutting him out the way I have. How could I call the police on him? How could I do the same to his family? His parents, they're good people. They didn't deserve to be humiliated in that manner. He's having a rough time, he's depressed. Everybody is worried about him. He loves me, really loves me. He's learned his lesson. It's time to grow up and forgive him. No, my date's presence didn't stop them from bringing it all up again. I lost my cool. I asked my father if he expected me to give my ex a pass every time he sticks his dick into anything that moves like he does. I asked my mother how turning a blind eye to her husband's infidelity works for her. How does she hold her head up while having lunch with women that have slept around with her husband for years? Is that the kind of man, the life, she wants for me and my sister, for her daughters? I asked if they had any idea of the impact that knowledge had on me and my siblings growing up, knowing that Dad was late home from work as he was screwing his secretary, knowing work weekend was code for dirty weekend with a woman not our mother. Did they not know why it was that of their 4 children? I am the only one that still talks to them? Do they not question why they were not invited to my brother's weddings? Why they have never met either of my brother's wives and children? Do they think my sister's silence is because she's being dramatic and throwing a tantrum? Really? I stood from the table, congratulated them on the loss of their last remaining child, and told them, I hope their arrogance, willful blindness, and misery was a comfort to them to their last breaths. Then I left. My date? I should have saved him for a proper date rather than a F.U. to my parents. He took me to the nearest bar, let me cry on his shoulder while I proceeded to get shit-faced, then made sure I got home safely. The next day, he messaged me to see if I was alive and sent a double cheeseburger, large fries, and a large Sprite over with DoorDash. I didn't block my parents, but I haven't heard from them. It's been a week, and I've calmed down enough to feel regret. Not for what I said, but because I can see the looks on their faces when I made my final farewell. I crushed them, hurt them, especially my mother. Despite their faults, and there are many, I love my parents. I don't like knowing I hurt them. I'm feeling a lot of guilt about it. Edit 1. I have yet to read all the comments, but from what I have seen so far, I think some details need to be cleared up. My date knew we were going to have dinner with my parents. He asked me out that morning. I told him my plans for the evening and jokingly asked if he wanted to come along. I didn't expect him to say yes. I then informed him I wasn't serious and anyway it would probably be a little uncomfortable, and he said if needed, he could post bail. So there you go. He did not enter that restaurant unaware of potential drama. Edit 2. The people mentioned in my post are not the only people in my life. I have my siblings in my life. They didn't cut me off. My sister flew in to be with me just days after I discovered the cheating, and I have good friends. Friends who helped me pack up X's things, helped me to move it all down to the curb, a friend that found me a guy that paid a fair price for the engagement ring. I only mentioned ex-BFF, etc. because how they acted and what they were saying contributed to all those buried feelings that had been dormant for years coming out when they did, in the way they did. Comments where OP has replied, ex's parents. My ex's parents are on the periphery of my parents' circle, and I have no doubt that they know all about my father's too many to count infidelities. I can well imagine that they expected me to put up with the same disrespect my mother has all these years. Comment. You love your parents but you don't like them nor their decisions. Completely makes sense given what you have told us about your childhood and their recent behavior. What do you need them to do to remain in your life as non-toxic? Think about that. What do you need them to do? What would be the ideal and what would be the bare minimum? OP. Ideally, I'd like my mother to leave my father and take him for everything. That will never happen. Another thing that won't ever happen is my father practicing discretion. What do they care for the humiliation they forced on us? knowing their own needs and desires will always be prioritized over anyone else's. I'd settle for an acknowledgement of the hurt we've endured for most of our lives, but I don't think I should hold my breath for that. Comment. Could well be that seeing how her mom sees nothing amiss with her partner cheating, and how OPs seem to have no issue with it, that's why the ex thought there'd be no consequences for him either. OP. I can see how people would think that. I didn't talk about it, ever, with anyone but my sister. Even then, we were both drunk and high when it came up. Of course, others would think I accepted that things were as they were. Of course, they would. It's not like anyone asked if I was okay with it, so how could they be expected to know that I wasn't? I understand that POV. Update. September 29th, 2024. It's been a minute since I was here last. Life has been busy, work has been busy, and updating Reddit wasn't on my mind. Apologies to all those that continue to send messages asking for an update. I figure better late than never. A quick recap. I lost my temper with my parents when they tried to push me to forgive and reconcile with my cheating ex. Some really hurtful and harsh truths were shared by me to them in the moment. Afterwards, I felt tremendous guilt. The regret started to eat at me. Where to start? First, a thank you to all who replied to my post. I tried to read every comment, and though I didn't post for the validation most of you gave, receiving it did lighten the load a little bit. It didn't take away from the guilt I carried, but I was able to work through that to see that although my timing was off, what I said was absolutely necessary. Thank you to some of those that sent me private messages rather than posting on the main thread. Having read your own stories of a similar upbringing, conversing with you has helped me to understand that my childhood and teens were traumatic, that those years left wounds that I'd never addressed until this all came about. One more shout out to those that sent harassing messages about my choices. Those people that preached about the sanctity of marriage and how men are basic creatures with basic needs. Those that attempted to school me in how to be a woman that needs to lean in to do my duty by allowing a man his vices, and that it was really all my fault for not supporting my ex in his time of need. Special shout out to the men that offered to teach me how to be submissive and learn my place in this world. And last but not least, the sweet little chicken nugget that told me my reaction was proof that I am a serial cheater, and my ex should have used a cattle prod on my happy place. It must have been tough for all of you when your women left. Big props to those ladies for escaping a life of misery with you. Now for what has happened since. My mother left my father not long after my post, maybe a couple of weeks after. She showed up at my apartment one night with her luggage. I can't explain how broken and pitiful she was. I brought her inside, held her, and my heart broke for her. I realized then that she had no one she could turn to. Absolutely no one, no family, no friends. I cannot help but wonder if she had been all alone for all the years of her marriage, and if me or one of my siblings had said something sooner, would she have had the courage to leave my father then? I'd never seen my mother, usually so dignified and unruffled, look so broken. It shocked me to see her that way. It worried me so much that I made her sleep in my bed with me. I called my siblings, and within days, they all came to show support and love. Then it was me, my mother, and my sister sleeping in my bed. It was good for her to see that her children still cared because we did care, we did love her. It was the situation my siblings distanced themselves from. At first, my mother stayed with me. She was having a hard time of it. Years of humiliation, shame, and guilt had ailed her. I was worried about her state of mind and didn't like to leave her alone. I couldn't take time off work to be with her every second of the day, so I took her to the shelter and we got her a dog. My thinking was if she had something to take care of, it would distract her from dark thoughts. I was hoping for a puppy because they're playful and would keep her busy, but she fell in love with a 5-year-old mixed breed, and he fell right back. He's a goof. We don't know how what happened, but we woke up one night to him howling because he had somehow wedged his head in between the spindles on the stairs, his whole head. We had to call the fire department to rescue him. Of course, my mother didn't think he was at fault, and she now refers to him as her baby. He adores my mother, though my oldest brother moved some things around. He moved her across the country to live with him and his family. He thought she would do better if there was no chance of her running into Dad or one of his many women. He found her a therapist, and that seems to be working. She is loving being a grandmother, and all reports are that she is an indulgent one. She has a separate in-law suite, so she gets to see them every day. My brother tells me when the kids go missing, they can now be found at grandma's. My dad is my dad. He doesn't lack for company. I had a dinner with him not long after my mother moved across the country, where he introduced me to the new woman in his life. I reminded them both that I knew exactly who she was considering. She called my mother her best friend for all my life. Cue another awkward dinner. My dad tried to make it as pleasant as he could, but whenever she spoke to me, I would bring up a memory from my childhood of her spending time with our family and ask if she was sleeping with my father all the way back then. The next day, he called to tell me how disappointed he was with me. I felt it only fair to share my own disappointments. We argued for a bit. He tried to downplay all he had done over the years, tried to play the victim of his own actions. I ended up cutting the conversation short and blocking him. It was just over a month ago when he showed up at my door. I wouldn't let him in, and I'm sure that rattled him some. He told me he didn't want to lose me. Say what you want about him, but he is my dad. I love him. I don't want to lose him either. He promised he wouldn't force me to interact with any of his women. So far, we have had a couple of pleasant outings that have gone well. So far, I am cautiously hopeful that we can continue to be in each other's lives. As for me, well, I took that advice some of you gave me, and I am in therapy. It is humbling to come to the realization that though you may think you're fine, you are actually not. It has been almost unbearable to face all that history and excruciatingly painful to dig through it all. At the end of some sessions, all I want to do is head to the nearest bar and drink until I forget all about what I just went through to find out where it all started and why I am the way I am. I think therapy is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. I don't know how some of you have been doing it for as long as you have. I also don't know why you do it so willingly. I'm a crazy nutter for listening to all you nutters in the first place, but it is helping. Now for the update most of you want. I cannot even tell you how many messages as I continue to receive from people wanting to know about him. It was almost like you all were saying, "Girl, we don't care about whatever life crisis you're going through. Just tell us about the date." Well, I haven't replied to any of those queries because my post wasn't about him. Now I figure in a roundabout way I owe you something because you all played a part in where we are today. I won't give a rundown of everything that has happened between us, but I will give you a few things. He contacted me after seeing a podcast on YouTube. He sent me a link with the query, "Is this you?" It would be an understatement to say I was mortified. My mortification kept me from replying to him. I was so deep in my embarrassment that I didn't even bother to read the messages he sent me over the next couple of weeks. When I finally did read them, it was to find a whole heap of screenshots of people's comments. I'm going out on a limb by saying you don't need me to tell you the contents of the comments he was sending me. I eventually got back to him. It was difficult for us to make time to see each other. As I stated earlier, my life, both personal and professional, has been busy. He also has a life and work. We were only able to meet up for coffee a couple of times. I didn't think we were going to be able to grow a friendship, let alone anything beyond that. I've since learned that he is tenacious and persistent, like a dog with a bone. He kept at it until we found time to go on a second date. That date went well and led to another, then another. Then he introduced me to the two most important people in his life, his grandparents. His grandfather carves little wooden figurines, and I have since acquired a flock of wooden birds. His grandmother thinks I'm too skinny. She feeds me whenever I see her and usually sends me home with food. He gets along with my sister and brothers. He came with me to visit my mother on her birthday and met them all. He was very gracious with her. I had him saved in my phone as Cheeseburger. He took issue with that because he bought me a double cheeseburger. So I started calling him Double Cheese, and then shortened that to DC. He is still saved in my phone as Cheeseburger. He's an undercover Swiftie, and I don't quite know what to do with that. I don't have anything against Taylor Swift, but I sure didn't pick him to love her. He did use his little sister and niece as cover for his Taylor Swift love. Now he uses me. I am fine with being so used. Comments where OP has replied. Comment. Now this was an update. I wish you the best. Ask for a duck to go with those birds, lol. I wish you a good life. OP. I asked for an owl and he gave me a goose. LOL. Comment. I'm so happy to hear you're dating the cheeseburger. I hope things continue to go well with that. Was hoping to hear something about the cheating ex, like he's homeless and lost his job. LOL. OP. He's not even a blip on my radar. Comment. Why do you even still love your dad / are you in contact with him? I love my dad. It's possible to love someone yet abhor what they do. Just like I love my mother even though she stayed. I will not feel guilty for loving both my parents. It will never happen. Further down the thread where I dodged the question, I love my dad. I love my mother. What he put us through was a form of abuse, and what she forced us to endure by staying was also a form of abuse. I love them anyway. I'm not going to deny it. I love my parents. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Entitled Sister made our parents cut me off after her divorce because I was friends with her ex-husband. But now they are getting cut off because they can't afford her new wedding. 3 years ago, my twin sister stopped speaking to me and also forced our parents to do the same because of the stupidest reason one can imagine. So for context, my sister, Emma, was getting divorced from her husband at the time, 3 years back. Her husband, Kevin, actually happened to be a really good friend of mine, and they had even met each other because of me. Kevin and I went to college together and we became really good friends. Even though he and I were close, Emma and I didn't really get along. She's my twin sister, and even though she's just 16 minutes younger than me, she had always been treated like the baby of the family. And that meant that she received golden child treatment from our parents. I guess maybe it was because she was their only daughter or something, but I always felt like my parents went soft on her and were tough on me because I was their son. So naturally, there was a certain degree of resentment that I had against her because I've always felt like my parents treated her better than they treated me. And because she got away with everything, she was also a bit of a brat. That was why she and I didn't really get along. But I remember one time my parents had tagged me in a family photo that we had clicked on Christmas, and both my sister and I were in it. It showed up on my profile, and Kevin saw it and asked me to introduce him to my sister because he was pretty much smitten with her at first sight. I kept declining for a really long time, but after a couple of weeks, when I realized that he was not going to give up, I decided to talk to Emma about it. Even though she and I didn't exactly get along, Kevin was a good friend of mine, and if he wanted to ask her out, then I wasn't going to stop him. So I asked her if she would be fine with me sharing her number with this guy, and she seemed fine with it. So I set them up together. Together, they started dating when we were in our first year of college and were in a relationship for 6 years before they decided to get engaged. I was happy for them since, because of her relationship with Kevin, Emma had become somewhat bearable as well. When they got married, I was the best man, and I was really happy for both of them. They stayed together for 2 years before the marriage came to an end. It was a really ugly divorce because Emma, being Emma, decided to cheat on him. There wasn't even any reason for her to cheat. She seemed reasonably happy enough with him, but in spite of that, she had an affair with a coworker. Kevin found out about it by going through her phone. When he confronted her about it, she told him that she was just bored and that the affair didn't mean anything to her. So she was ready to end it and work it out with him. But these kinds of things don't just get worked out. Kevin decided to leave, and she had the audacity to demand alimony from him, even though she had been working and had an affair. So it's not like she qualified for it. The divorce got pretty ugly, and I was strongly on Kevin's side because even though Emma was my sister, she was the one who had cheated, and it wasn't like I got along with her anyway, so I knew where my priorities were. And I guess that didn't sit right with her because she ended up complaining to her parents about it and said that she did not approve of my friendship with her soon-to-be ex-husband because, as her family, I should be on her side, no questions asked. I don't know what's wrong with my parents, but they actually found her point valid and decided to call a family meeting based on her complaints. So they invited me over for dinner and confronted me about the friendship that I had with Kevin. They told me that they wanted me to cut him out of my life because he had wronged my sister and his family shouldn't stand for it. I thought that it was ridiculous and unreasonable, and I told them that Kevin had been my friend for a really long time, and I was not going to cut him out of my life. I would definitely have done it if he had been the one who had cheated, but Emma was the one who had been unfaithful to him for no reason, so I didn't see any reason for me to cut him off. And she had been sitting right there, so she got really offended and said that I had always just been insecure of her and it was showing. She accused me of trying to sabotage her on purpose so she wouldn't be able to get anything out of the divorce. I lost my temper and told her that she didn't deserve anything anyway, since she was a cheater and had no morals or ethics. We had a pretty nasty verbal spat that day, and I ended up leaving early. I expected my parents to reach out to me within the next couple of days, and they did. But it was only to tell me that they were cutting me off because Emma had given them an ultimatum, and they were going to take it seriously. Apparently, after my fight with her that day, Emma had told them that she didn't want them speaking to me anymore because I had made it very obvious that I did not take the family seriously and I was not loyal to them. So since I had no concept of family loyalty, I needed to be taught a lesson, and she had told them that they had to choose between me and her. I wasn't shocked at all to learn that my parents had chosen to sit with her. I didn't even argue with them when they called me. After telling me, they sounded very disappointed and tried to tell me that I could just put an end to all of this by cutting Kevin out of my life, but at that point it had become a matter of principles. So I wished them the best for the future and stopped speaking to them. 3 years have passed since then, and Kevin and I are still the best of friends, but I haven't spoken a word to my family. I do see them now and again, but we avoid each other as much as we can, and it makes me sad to think that my parents chose Emma over me. But it is what it is. I didn't think that they were going to get in touch with me anytime soon, but recently my parents decided to contact me. It was not to apologize, unfortunately, but to ask for my help. Recently, I had come into a lot of money because my business had suddenly started taking off. I am a restaurant owner, and after a particularly good food review from a really popular blogger, people started pouring in, and it's been a blessed couple of months since then. I guess my parents did the math and decided to contact me because they needed money. The funny thing is, they don't even need the money for themselves. They need it to help Emma out. Apparently, she's getting married yet again. I guess she had lied to Kevin about things not being serious with the coworker she was having an affair with because from what I know, that's the guy she's getting married to. They have been together ever since she got divorced, and they got engaged a couple of months ago. I knew about it, but it wasn't like I was going to be invited, so I didn't think much of it. Anyway, around 4 days ago, my parents visited me, and I was quite shocked to see them, but they were being nice enough, so I invited them in. The reason I hadn't just slammed the door shut in their faces was because firstly, I'm not a guy like that, and secondly, I had made the rookie mistake of assuming that they were here to make things right with me by apologizing. That was my bad. Anyway, after some small talk about my life and my business, my parents got to the point and told me that Emma was getting remarried, and she wanted it to be a grand affair because she wanted people to forget all about her first wedding and remember only this one. That pretty much sounded like something Emma would do, so I wasn't surprised. But then they got to the budget and told me that as of now, it was going to cost them at least a whopping $90,000 to be able to afford the kind of wedding that she wanted. At that point, it was nothing short of a luxury wedding, and we did not come from that kind of a family. My dad was a realtor who had recently retired, and my mother was a college history professor. So yeah, I would say that both of them made a decent amount of money when they were working and had reasonable funds set aside for themselves for the future, but blowing $90,000 on a wedding was unimaginable. My parents told me that the wedding was still a good few months away, so it's not like they needed the money immediately, and they could afford to contribute some money from their retirement fund but obviously wouldn't be able to cover the entire cost. And her fiancé's family had already surrendered and said that they wouldn't be able to help out. But my parents didn't want Emma to feel disappointed, and so they had already committed that they would cover the entire cost of the wedding. That had been before she started planning and told them about the budget. And now they didn't know what to tell her because there was no way that they would be able to afford this without it heavily denting their retirement funds. They didn't want to disappoint her, so they had racked their brains about what to do, and eventually, they had heard from a couple of people that my restaurant was doing well, and they had taken it as a sign from the universe to pay me a visit and talk to me about contributing to the wedding expenses. They told me that this wedding meant everything to Emma because after her divorce from Kevin, she had to get therapy because of how traumatizing it had been for her, and now I had the chance to be a good brother to her for once and contribute to the wedding. The last time that she had asked me for something, I had refused, and we had ended up not speaking for 3 years, and now I had a chance to fix that by covering the expenses of her wedding and making it up to her. If I'm being frank, I honestly thought that they were joking because there was no way that they were delusional enough to believe that I was actually going to help them out here. Even if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't have made any contributions to Emma's wedding, and that's what I told my parents. But of course, I said that after having a good laugh right in their faces because honestly, I couldn't process the fact that they had the audacity to come to me after 3 years and not even apologize but pretend like I had done something wrong by cutting them off instead of Kevin. Anyway, after I laughed in their faces and said that, I guess my parents got really offended and instead of leaving, they started trying to pick a fight with me. They told me that there was nothing funny about the situation and that Emma had been right when she had said that I had no concept of family loyalty because even now when I was being presented the opportunity to make things right with my sister on a platter, I was still refusing to help her out. And this time, it was my parents who accused me of being jealous and insecure of my sister and said that I was extremely petty. That did not sit right with me at all because I could understand Emma saying such things since she was just that delusional and stupid. But my parents knew exactly what they had done. So I really lost it and I told them that they had no right to say any of these things to me because they were the reason I didn't get along with Emma in the first place. I brought up how differently they had treated me and her all along, and they were the ones who had created a rift between us by spoiling her rotten but then expecting me to always tough it out. I told them that they had failed as parents, and this was the reason why Emma had turned into a total monster who couldn't care less about her own parents and thought it was completely fine to ask them to pay for such a luxurious wedding. And it was also their fault that not even their son was willing to help them out. So maybe they thought that they had at least one kid who cared about them. But if Emma genuinely cared about them, she wouldn't have asked them to cover the cost of the wedding. She would have done the math, realized that it was way beyond the budget of a moderately successful realtor and a professor, and either downsized the wedding or tried to arrange for the money herself. But she didn't care about any of that. All she cared about was herself. And I didn't feel like I needed to care about my parents because, well, it's not like they cared about me. So at the end of the day, it was because of their own behavior that they had ended up with 2 kids who couldn't be bothered to think about them, and they had nobody else to blame but themselves. After I said this, my mom started sobbing and my dad cursed me out before leaving with her. At the time, I didn't feel bad for them at all because I was really pissed off, but a few hours ago, I received a text from my dad saying that he was really disappointed in me because what I had said had broken his heart, and my mother was in a terrible condition because of me. So now I'm worried if I went a bit overboard with what I said. I feel like they deserved it, but at the same time I feel guilty about it as well, and it's a very strange feeling. I need some opinions from you guys right now, so what do you think? Am I the a-hole for telling my parents that they have 2 kids who don't care about them, and it's their own fault? Update 1. Hey everyone, so after going through the comments and stuff, I realized that you guys are right, and I don't have anything to feel sorry about. I'm just a very sensitive person, and maybe that's why I was feeling guilty about saying that to my parents, but they totally deserved it. I don't need to feel anything. Anyway, it's been a week since I spoke to them, and I've blocked them now. It's funny that my dad had unblocked me specifically to send that message when in the past 3 years, he couldn't even have been bothered to check up on me once. It just goes to show how selfish and heartless they are. And that was to tell him that I don't care about them because I don't, and that's the truth. Anyway, a lot of people wanted to know whether Kevin had any idea that Emma was getting remarried. And yeah, he did. She had posted about her engagement a couple of months ago, and that was when he found out. So he has known about it for quite a while and he is fine with it. The divorce was really ugly and terrible for both of them, so I guess that process really helped him move on from her. And now he has absolutely no feelings for her. He hadn't been dating for quite some time after the divorce, but last year he started seeing other people as well. He's doing quite well for himself, and we do try and catch up every other weekend. In fact, I even told him about my parents visiting me and asking me to contribute to Emma's second wedding, and even he told me that I did the right thing by refusing. We had a good laugh over the fact that apparently Emma had to get therapy after the divorce because she was so traumatized since, from what we remember, it was she who had come up with a bunch of lies to make Kevin look like the bad guy during the divorce so she could get the alimony that she wanted and justify her affair. I have no idea why she would need therapy after she was the one who ended up traumatizing everyone. Anyway, I'm going to keep a safe distance from my parents and go back to not speaking to them. That's what is best for my mental health, and I hope that they don't reach out to me again because I would hate having to get caught up in this mess. Update 2. Hey, so around 2 weeks ago, my parents had paid me a visit, and that meeting didn't exactly end well. After that, I blocked them, and I had hoped that they wouldn't reach out to me again, but they contacted me yet again today. I guess they were using a burner phone because I couldn't recognize the number. Anyway, they called me up while I was working, and I was quite distracted, so I ended up answering because I thought it was an important call. But as soon as I heard my dad's voice on the other end, I was about to hang up. I didn't, though, because he told me that he was standing outside my restaurant, and he was desperate to see me. So I absolutely needed to meet him for coffee because he couldn't leave without talking to me. I tried to tell him that I was at work, and I was going to be busy for the next couple of hours, but he told me that he was fine with waiting. He sounded very desperate, and I was kind of worried, so I agreed to meet with him because otherwise, he might have entered my restaurant and thrown a temper tantrum. He didn't exactly say it, but it might have happened, and that was the last thing that I wanted. So I decided to cut my losses and just grab coffee with him. But after that phone call, I just couldn't go back to work because I was so distracted and pissed at my dad. So I decided to take a break and went out to meet him at the coffee shop that he had said he would be at. It was quite close by, so I walked there, and when I saw my father sitting inside, I immediately went up to him and I told him that what he was doing was absolutely unacceptable, and he couldn't just harass me at work because he wanted money from me. But he told me that he was not here to talk about money. He was here to talk about my mother, and that took me by surprise. He told me that after that last conversation that I had with them, my mother had completely broken down and hadn't been herself. Even though 2 weeks had passed since we met, she hadn't been able to bounce back to normal and had become a shell of a person. So now there was only one thing that could help, and that would be for me to visit her and have a talk with her. My dad also looked pretty disturbed, so I was in a very tough position because I didn't want to hurt them on purpose, but at the same time, I didn't feel obliged to go see my mother since she hadn't bothered to speak to me in the past 3 years, and things have been really bad between us. After thinking about it for a while, I told my father that I didn't have the time to go see her in person, and even if I did agree to go see her, I didn't know what exactly he expected me to say to her because it would be a lie for me to say that I forgive them since I didn't. And I couldn't forgive them because they had never apologized. My dad started getting very agitated when I said that I wasn't going to go see her and said that my mother was in a very bad condition emotionally because she had been really affected by what I had said the other day about none of their kids caring about them. To be fair, my mother had always been very delicate and fragile emotionally. It never took much to make her cry or hurt her, even when we were younger, and everyone in the family knew that we kind of had to walk on eggshells when we were speaking to her. I do agree that my mother is a deeply sensitive person, but so am I, and if she can't let things go, neither can I. I tried to explain that to my father, but he told me that just for once, I needed to put our differences aside and go see my mom because she had completely broken down. After one point, we were just talking in circles, so I told him quite firmly that I was not going to be seeing anyone, at least not until both of them had apologized to me. And even then, I would need some time to think about it. For the past 3 years, they haven't even spoken to me, and even before that, they hadn't really treated me well. So naturally, it has become very difficult for me to perceive them in the same way that I used to or even care about them. I've built a life for myself without them, and they didn't seem to care about it until they needed me, or rather, needed my money. Now it was really unfair of them to expect me to put everything in the past and try to make things right with them just because my mother was upset. I was also very upset when they cut me out of their lives, but they didn't seem to care about it, and neither did they check up on me after that, even though I had also been quite hurt. I told my father I was not going to see my mom and I was really busy, so if he tried to harass me at work after this, then I would be left with no option but to call the cops. And not just at work, I didn't want them visiting me either. I made it clear that I was serious about it. Then I left and went back to the restaurant because I had a lot of things to attend to. I thought that he was going to try and do something later on in the day, but thankfully that did not happen. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm just really tired of this and regretting letting them back into my life that day in the first place. Update 3. Hi, so I'm back here again. But this time, thankfully, it's not because of my parents. Well, technically it is, but at least not directly. So I haven't had to speak to them yet. Anyway, even though I haven't had a good relationship with my family for the past 3 years, I've gotten along well with my other relatives. All of them know that we had a falling out a couple of years back, and since then we haven't been on speaking terms, and they also know the reasons why, but nobody really wanted to get caught up in the drama. So they stayed out of it by always inviting both me and my family separately to whatever events were being hosted, like weddings and birthdays and other parties. Recently, though, one of my cousins announced their pregnancy, and I realized that my family had not been invited to the party. When I asked her about it, she told me that it hadn't been because of me, but just because she had had a bit of an argument with my sister a couple of weeks before the party around the time that she had posted the pregnancy news online. Apparently, Emma had accused her of trying to steal her thunder because her wedding was a couple of months away, and she's so delusional that she thought that our cousin got pregnant on purpose just to outshine the bride. It was obviously a ridiculous thing to say, and our cousin decided to cut ties with her because nobody needs to start that kind of negativity when they're pregnant. I mean, can you honestly blame her for cutting Emma off? And by extension, she also decided not to invite my parents because they had taken it upon themselves to contact my cousin's parents and tell them that she was being a bit of a brat by making such a big deal out of her pregnancy, knowing that Emma was getting married in a couple of months. So from my family, I was the only person who had been invited because my cousin knew that I had nothing to do with them. And even though the rest of them not being invited had nothing to do with me and everything to do with their own behavior, they decided to put the blame on me. They just put out a statement online saying that they had kept quiet about my jealous and insecure behavior when it came to Emma for the longest time because they did not want to ruin my reputation in the family or otherwise. But now, since I had taken it upon myself to turn the rest of the family against them, they were going to be forced to speak up. They made it sound like it was my fault that my cousin hadn't invited them to the pregnancy announcement party. And not only that, they made me look like the bad guy for continuing to be friends with Kevin even though he had ruined my sister's mental health during their divorce. Of course, there was no mention of the fact that she had been cheating on him because why would there be? They called me a self-centered and insecure loser and said that they were glad that they didn't have to call me their son anymore because they were going to disown me. I wish I could say I cared, but I really don't. A lot of people sent me that post since I couldn't see it because I'm blocked, and I told them not to bother arguing with my family because clearly, they are in over their own heads. Nobody who actually matters is going to buy any of what has been said in that post, so it's not like it's doing any actual damage to my reputation. So they can go on running their mouths. I'm way above this BS. At the same time, I am very grateful to the family members who are on my side because until now, even though they hadn't wanted to be caught up in the drama, I'm pretty sure that everyone is going to stay away from my parents and my sister. Update 4. Hello everyone. It has been a couple of months since I last posted here because honestly, there was nothing much to talk about. After that statement that my parents put out online blaming me for everything that was going wrong, most of our relatives pretty much stopped speaking to my family altogether. And I'm pretty sure that they would have blamed me for it as well, but there was no point in making any posts against me after that since the damage had already been done, and it had gone to the point of no return. I was pretty happy without them, and I'm even happier now since I recently learned from a few of my relatives who are still in touch with my parents that apparently Emma had cut them off. My parents hadn't been present at her wedding that happened a few weeks back, so that led to a lot of questions, and a few relatives who were still on speaking terms with them had decided to ask them what was going on. And they told them that they had to tell Emma that her wedding budget was way beyond their means and they couldn't afford it. So then they had a huge fight because Emma was pissed since they had promised her that they would cover all the expenses, and now they were going back on their word. They had tried to explain to her that they had made those promises because they had assumed that it was going to be within their budget, but her plans were too extravagant, and they had to think about their own future as well since they were now both retired. Emma didn't like that, and being the spoiled brat that she is, she decided to cut them off and had her fiancé and his family pay for the wedding. So that meant that they had to scale down considerably and have a normal wedding, but without her parents. Emma doesn't seem to be affected by any of this, but my parents are very upset from what I know, and they're very disappointed that neither of their kids seem to care about them, which is fair enough because that's exactly what I had said in the beginning. Anyway, things are going well for me, so I don't really care about any of this. All of this just proves that you can't run away from karma, and it's going to catch up to you eventually. That's what happened with my parents. Soon enough, it's going to happen to Emma as well. So really good luck to them. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My stepbrother faked my medical reports to prevent me from going on a family trip, but then I discovered he dropped out of college and was stealing money, and now has ended up in jail. Hi! The incident I'll be talking about today happened between me, 23F, and my stepbrother, 23M. Let's call him Tom for the story's sake. I was adopted by my stepfather during my pre-teens after my biological father left my mother for someone he liked. My mother had not been in great health, so his reason was that he couldn't take her burden. After the divorce, my mom met my stepdad at the hospital where he was treating her as a doctor. They felt a connection and soon got married. My stepfather was widowed and had a son, Tom. Tom didn't like me and my mom from the get-go. At first, both parents thought it was a reaction to a new dynamic, but Tom's behavior didn't change much over the years. He wasn't blatantly cruel to me and my mom, but he was generally distant and extremely rude. For example, we both went to the same school, but he wouldn't acknowledge me as his sister or invite me to play with his friends. Soon after their marriage, my mother fell extremely ill, and it was revealed that she was suffering from stage 4 cancer and wouldn't live much longer. It was then that my stepdad decided to adopt me so that I would have someone to call family after my mother passed away. Even at my mother's passing, Tom didn't get involved much. Instead, he planned a vacation with his friends on the day of my mother's wake, and after his father's repeated insistence and a lot of drama, he canceled it. My stepdad had been extremely nice to me throughout my childhood and never made me feel like an outsider, but he was so busy with his work that he was barely home. So, with just Tom and me together, many silly fights happened. One thing I realized about him was that he was a spoiled brat. Tom was an above-average student but couldn't get into a good college. I, on the other hand, was extremely meritorious and knew I would get into a great college. We both had plans to go to med school after graduation, with his motive being the money and my motive being to become like my stepdad. We rarely saw each other once we left for college, only during holidays with Dad. I had no contact with him outside our house, and it was during our biannual family gatherings that I found out about him splurging his time and money on partying with friends. But I didn't care. As soon as we finished our graduation, we both attempted the med school entrance exam. I got in on the first attempt, whereas Tom failed. From that point on, his dislike for me turned into jealousy. My stepdad was elated at my achievement and planned a short vacation for a week to Cambodia for me and Tom. Tom hesitated at first but agreed after Dad convinced him by assuring him that he would personally oversee Tom's progress for his next attempt. I was just excited to have some free time after so much hard work. We had our flight late in the evening, so in the afternoon, my stepdad showed up in my room a little stressed. I asked him what was up. That's when he told me that it might not be possible for me to go on the vacation with them. I was confused and asked what was going on. He told me that Tom was snooping around his closet to find some old books my stepdad had, and that's where he found these medical reports that belonged to me. He told me that my mother had never shown these to him, and they said that I had a heart condition since childhood, which made it unsafe for me to travel by airplane. For clarity's sake, my college was a 1-hour ride from my hometown, so I had almost never taken a flight during all these years. I looked at the reports and they seemed real. I was pretty bummed out, and my stepdad decided to cancel the trip altogether. I didn't like that because he was quite excited about the trip as well, so I forced him to go with Tom and assured him that I would be fine having a quiet weekend at home. After a lot of back and forth, he and Tom finally decided to go on the vacation. The next week was more eventful for me than I had thought. My stepdad used to constantly send me pictures from his vacation, and I reacted to them very half-heartedly just for his sake. I was pretty curious about the medical reports and decided to research the heart problem I supposedly had. With the help of Google and some friends I had made while prepping for the entrance, I realized that the disease was hereditary. Since I had a lot of time on my hands, I decided to find my mom's reports and see if she had it, which, to my surprise, she did not. Then I thought it might have been from my dad's side. My biological dad was not a very good person and had gone to jail a few times and was currently in one, so I thought I might ask for his medical information from the jail since I needed to know it for my own health. They told me he would have to sign for access, and they'd get back to me if they could give it to me. I didn't think it would happen, but 2 days later I got a call from the station asking me to collect the medical report since my bio dad had signed them. Even he did not have the disease mentioned in my reports. Only 2 options were left. One, that I wasn't my bio dad's child, and the second, that the reports were false. Only the second option made sense because in my mother's reports I'd found a paternity test for me. Apparently, my bio dad wasn't very sure of my mom and had gotten a paternity test done, which proved that I was my parents' child indeed. As soon as I realized this, I called my friends and let them know how confused I was about all this. One of them told me that it was pretty easy to forge medical reports for a certain amount of money. On hearing this, my first doubt went towards Tom because he was the one who had found the reports and given them to Dad. I ran to his room and began to search. It felt wrong to invade his privacy, but I needed to know the truth. In his desk drawer, under a pile of papers, I found a draft of the medical reports. There were notes in Tom's handwriting detailing how to create a convincing forgery. I was shocked at the revelation. I knew he didn't like me but didn't expect him to go this far to actually exclude me. I also found a suspicious-looking diary lying there, but I was too shocked to look beyond the reports. I wanted to tell my dad right then about what had happened but decided not to spoil his trip. The next day, when I was finally able to gather my thoughts, I decided to go back to Tom's room and clean it up a bit. I stumbled upon that black diary again, and after a lot of consideration, I decided to open and read it. What I found was something I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams. The diary had daily entries of money Tom had spent during college. A lot of it went to a few people only, and their numbers were given up against their names. I gathered all the courage I had and called one of those numbers. On talking, I realized they were the numbers of some loan sharks. On getting further details, under the false pretext of Tom being gone missing and me, his sister, looking for him through his contacts, I realized that these guys had lent him a lot of money he had lost in gambling. On looking further in the diary, I found one of his roommate's phone numbers and decided to call him. I asked him about Tom and he told me everything. This guy wasn't in contact with Tom for the last 3 years. They were roommates for the first year, but Tom wasn't serious about his college and had gotten into drugs and gambling during the first 6 months. He tried to get Tom back on the right path and away from distractions, but after a point, he decided it was best to mind his own business and apply for a room change. Later, since my stepdad had ample money, he had funded our education so far and used to send tuition and a little expense money whenever required. Tom had developed a gambling addiction and left college after a year. As per his roommate, he used to take money from loan sharks for gambling and would pay it back to them with a fee our father gave him. Nobody in our family, including our extended family, knew about this. Tom could appear in the entrance exam without a degree, but even if he had passed, there was no chance that he could have gotten into med school because he didn't have a pre-med degree. It took me a few hours to process this information and what a fraud Tom actually was. Earlier, I wasn't sure about why he didn't want me to go on the vacation with them, but now with a lot of things unclear, I just impatiently waited for my stepdad and Tom to come back the day after tomorrow. My stepdad and Tom returned on the expected day. They both looked pretty happy but had no idea how bad things were about to get. After they had both relaxed a little, I asked Dad if I could talk to him about something. Tom made a face and stood up to leave, but I stopped him and asked him to stay as well since it was crucial. I first showed my dad my reports and asked if he knew where these reports were from. He said that since they were made before he married my mother, he had no idea about the source because he wasn't very familiar with my mom's town. I could see Tom's face turning red beside him. He asked why, and I told him about all the little research I had done over the weekend and how I found out that there was no way I could have had this disease. I hadn't told him about Tom so far, just to give Tom a chance to come clean on his own, but he sat there quietly, all scared. After rechecking the reports of my biological dad and mom, my stepdad got confused as well. That's when I asked Tom if he would like to step in. His face turned pale, and he shook his head in a no while simultaneously playing with his phone. I then proceeded to tell my dad everything about how I had found the fake reports in Tom's room and asked a few of my friends who told me about the possibility of the reports being fake. My dad was as shocked as I was the first time and turned towards Tom, who was on the verge of tears. I decided that I'd first get the answer about why he wanted to exclude me from the vacation and then reveal the truth about his fake life. Dad began shouting at him, asking where he got the reports from and what was the need for him to do something like this. He stayed quiet for the longest time before finally breaking his silence. He said that after my mom had passed, our dad paid a lot more attention to me than him. He had always resented me for stealing his dad from him, and that limit was crossed once I cleared the medical entrance exam and he could not. He claimed there was no malice on his side behind the step. He just wanted to spend a week with his dad alone. He also told my stepdad that he got the reports from a college friend of his who had some connections. My stepdad was extremely pissed at him and was too angry even to look at him. He turned his face towards me and, with tears in his eyes, apologized for Tom's idiotic behavior. Tom, on the other hand, was also profusely crying, asking for an apology from both me and his dad. I hugged Dad and told him he had nothing to do with this and turned towards Tom. Then I asked him if he still wanted to tell something to our dad before I revealed the truth. My stepdad was extremely confused at this, and Tom realized what was going on. His tears immediately stopped, and he ran to his room. Before I could tell my stepdad anything, he came back from his room with a bag on his shoulder. Dad tried to get hold of him, but he stormed out of the house and sat outside in an Uber he had called. My stepdad was too frazzled by all this and sat down to calm himself. We've now been trying to contact Tom via calls constantly, only for him not to pick up. I still haven't told my stepdad about his alternative life because I fear it could take a toll on him right now, and to toy with his health is the last thing I would do. I'll tell him as soon as I find the right time, till we hear something from Tom, who left in a frenzy. Update 1. So, after Tom had left, we got a call from his maternal aunt who had seen him pass by her house in the car and asked if he was there to visit. Some news of Tom calmed my stepdad down, and he asked her if Tom had stopped by. She said he hadn't, but she'd call him and ask if he wished to spend the night, because she felt something was wrong. Dad thanked her and hung up. A few hours later, he got a text from the aunt saying that Tom was with her, safe. My stepdad immediately got ready to leave and bring Tom back home. This was the right time. I asked him to wait and sit down because there was something much bigger I wished to reveal to him. I went into my room and got Tom's diary. I had sneaked it away the day I found it and kept it hidden as proof. I showed him the diary and told him everything, from Tom taking loans to him leaving college after the first year. My stepdad, on hearing this, held his head in his hands, just trying to process this. We finally decided that now wasn't the time to bring Tom back home, at least until my stepdad could make sense of Tom's fraud. Over the next 3 days, my stepdad constantly kept in touch with Tom's aunt to know about Tom's whereabouts. The aunt's behavior changed towards my stepdad after a day or two, and on asking, she revealed that Tom had told her the reason he ran away from home. My stepdad, all perplexed, asked her why she was being rude to him if that was the case. She said she obviously wouldn't want to talk to someone who was treating their son so harshly and so blatantly practicing favoritism towards their stepdaughter. My stepdad got extremely angry at this and asked Tom's aunt to shut up and told her the truth. She didn't believe it at first, but once he sent her the fake reports Tom had forged, she got quiet and said she'd talk to my stepdad later after talking to Tom once she got back home from work. That same night, my stepdad got a call from Tom's aunt who said that Tom had quietly left her house while she was at work and took with him a bundle of cash she had kept for emergencies in a hidden drawer. She also said he left her a letter saying that he was heading to his grandparents' house in another state and would appreciate it if his dad didn't know about him. My stepdad at this point was so frustrated with Tom and his shenanigans that he decided not to waste time finding out where Tom was. He directly called his mom and dad, who didn't pick up his calls. They both rarely use anything related to modern tech, and even the phones they have are for emergencies. So he wrote them a letter asking them to call him immediately after Tom reached them. Update 2. It has been a week since the last update, and a lot has gone down. My step-grandparents do live in a not-so-far state, so the letter reached them within 2 days. Tom had arrived at their house before the letter and had no idea about it. He told the same "dad isn't treating me right" story to his grandparents, who chose to believe him. They called my dad and asked him to meet them as soon as he could because it was urgent. My dad took me with him and we flew out the same night. On reaching there, Dad immediately started looking for Tom, who was nowhere to be found. Tom's grandma led us into the living room and asked my stepdad to calm down. Tom's grandpa told my stepdad that Tom was safe in his own room but wouldn't meet us because he feared something terrible might happen if we met. My stepdad immediately told him the whole deal about Tom, how he had run away stealing his aunt's money with proof, and how he needed to be held accountable. Grandpa told him he knew the story was a fake one because my stepdad wanted to give me everything from his will, as told to them by Tom. My stepdad tried to convince him it was fake, but Tom had gotten some fake documents stating it was my dad's will, which mentioned how he planned on giving me everything. My stepdad tried to explain to his father that he never had a will, but all the efforts were futile. After a lot of fighting and not getting to see Tom, we decided to leave. Before leaving, Tom's grandma told my dad that he was going to give Tom all the inheritance that was supposed to be my stepdad's. My stepdad was shocked at this, and it looked like he got emotional at the prospect of his own family turning against him. But he felt so defeated in front of his dad that he decided to leave without a word. While leaving, we saw Tom looking down at us from his room's window with a very sorry face. My stepdad was extremely stressed over all this, and I felt bad for being the bearer of bad news. He comforted me and told me none of it was my fault and that I should prepare to leave for med school next month. He was now done with Tom and was actually going to remove his name from his own will. He wanted to have a final confrontation with Tom for some answers as to why he was doing this and then cut all contact with him. Update 3. So, I'm writing this update a few days after the last one. We hadn't been in contact with Tom or his grandparents, and honestly, at this point, my stepdad and I just wished to move on with our lives. Temporarily, I was packing for my med school where his dad got busy with his work. One day, he got a missed call from his parents. Since they don't really use phones, he assumed the worst and called them back, all worried. His mom was crying on the phone and couldn't say much, so his dad took the phone and he sounded tense as well. Before my stepdad could ask, his dad told him the whole incident. Apparently, right after we left Tom's grandparents' home, he came down from his room and cried in front of them. He told them how he was never going to get anywhere with no money and that his dreams of becoming a doctor might also just shatter. This led to them feeling pity for him, and under the manipulation they signed a check of $50,000, which is a pretty huge amount to him but only for emergencies. The next day, Tom was again gone with a check, and this time he left no note or anything. They tried calling him, but the phone seemed to be perpetually switched off. My stepdad asked them to calm down on the phone and decided to let everyone know about Tom so that he wouldn't be able to manipulate anyone they knew anymore. He came home early that day and wrote a post describing everything Tom had done so far, including stealing from his aunt and his old grandparents. He mentioned clearly in that post to consider this a caution to not be another one of Tom's victims. The post got a lot of impressions. He then called Tom's aunt and invited her to our home along with his parents who were flying out that night. When they met, he asked if they had gotten any calls from Tom, which both parties denied. Then, he suggested filing a case against Tom if they wished to get back their lost money, because he saw no other way to get hold of Tom. After a lot of hesitation and deliberation, they agreed. They went to the police station and filed a complaint of robbery and forgery against him. His grandparents apologized to my stepdad for not trusting him, and he decided to send them back and take care of the case on their behalf. They left the next day. Update 4. I know this update has been long overdue, but I got busy with college and I'm writing this update now that I'm back home for the Christmas weekend. Until I left for college, there was no update on Tom and his whereabouts. I was a bit reluctant about leaving my stepdad alone to deal with the situation on his own, but he assured me he'd contact me as soon as he felt he needed me. So I left for college. The day after I left, my stepdad got a call from a prison in another state, saying it was Tom who called him. He received the call and talked to Tom. Tom started to cry immediately and began explaining why he was there. Apparently, he had run away from his grandparents' home to a city near his hometown to stay with some of his college friends and gamble in the local casino. After enduring many losses, when he ran out of money, he went on to steal from an empty house, only for the owners to see him through their home security camera and call the cops on him. Tom said he only remembered his dad's number, and that's why I was calling him to bail him out. My stepdad was appalled at his audacity and cut the call without giving him a reply. He immediately called the police and let them know that Tom was caught under a robbery charge and asked if this could mean he could be tried for theft from his grandparents and aunt as well. The cop told him he'd check and let him know. A few hours later, my stepdad got to know that Tom was acquitted of the robbery charge because the homeowners realized it was planned by their own son and took back the case in fear of having their son go to jail. So, Tom was now going to trial for manipulating and stealing money from his grandparents and his aunt. My stepdad got a chance to talk to Tom while he was getting out, and he didn't ask much but just let Tom know that he shouldn't expect anything from him and that they would go no contact at least till the trial was on. Tom was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, theft, and identity theft. The case quickly became a focal point in the small community, drawing attention not just because of the crime but because of the betrayal from the son of the family. The trial was scheduled for 2 weeks after Tom and my stepdad's talk. Tom's grandparents weren't able to attend the first hearing, but my stepdad and Tom's aunt were present in the courtroom. The prosecution laid out a compelling case. They presented evidence of forged documents, a copy of the $50K transaction, and the note Tom left for his aunt claiming that he had taken the money. They painted a picture of Tom as a manipulative and deceitful individual who had taken advantage of his family's trust for personal gain, which sounds a little harsh but was absolutely true. On the next assigned date, Tom's aunt and his grandparents testified, claiming that they trusted Tom and helped him in his hour of need only for him to use them for money. My dad also got to give testimony, during which he cried, explaining what Tom had done with the money for his education, which was able to persuade the jury to their side. The defense argued that Tom was not a hardened criminal but a desperate man who had made poor decisions under immense financial pressure. They presented a narrative of a man who had fallen on hard times, suggesting that his actions, while wrong, were not driven by malice but by desperation. Tom's lawyer emphasized his lack of a criminal record, appealing to the jury for a lenient sentence. The trial lasted for several weeks, with testimonies from financial experts, character witnesses, and forensic analysts. The jury deliberated for 2 days before returning with a verdict: guilty on all accounts. The judge, while acknowledging Tom's lack of prior offenses and the difficult circumstances, emphasized the severity of the crime and the breach of trust. Tom was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after a year for good behavior, and he was asked to pay his aunt and grandparents, which at this point could have taken years. My stepdad got to talk to Tom before he was taken to jail. The only question he asked Tom was why. Tom responded that he had felt lonely all his childhood, and in high school he developed friendships with people who were into drugs and such stuff. This is where his habit of gambling started, and he had been using that money to maintain an alternative lifestyle way beyond what his father could actually provide for him. He had no idea when the fun in games turned into an addiction, and in his pursuit not to lose friends in college, he started to gamble way more than he could afford by taking loans from shady people. He continued that the loans were getting much heftier than what our dad sent, so the only option left for him was to pay back with the tuition fee. He claimed that he had realized his fraud might be revealed after he gave the entrance. When I cleared the exam, he could see what his life could have been and got extremely jealous, and in that moment he used his connections to get fake reports of me being ill. That triggered the domino effect, and the results were in front of everyone. My stepdad was not in a state to say much and just left. I couldn't believe all that had gone down while I was at college and consoled my stepdad, who got emotional telling the story. Update 5. This will be the final update. It has now been 6 months since Tom was sentenced. My stepdad and his parents had completely cut off from Tom and didn't check on him while he was in jail. His aunt still pitied him and visited once in a while. Tom had written a letter from jail to me as he knew in which college I was studying. It was an apology for all he had done and an attempt to rekindle a relationship with the only family he had left. I decided to visit him once. He looked well and apologized profusely to me. I told him that there wasn't a relationship between us in the first place, so he shouldn't think of us meeting as a start to anything new, at least until I can get over it. He agreed, and we decided to take it slow in building our relationship. He mentioned that seeing me work for my future had led him to reconsider his decisions, and he wanted to continue his studies from prison. He asked if I could send him some resources for it over the years, and I said yes because I believe people deserve second chances. I told my stepdad about it, and he wasn't pleased but said he wouldn't interfere as long as I was okay with it. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Am I wrong for rejecting my colleague's request to make her lunch? I have a habit of making my own meals to work, simply because I love cooking and have health-related issues. So, I just started a new job in a new company 3 months ago. Seeing me making my own lunch every day has gotten me some attention from some colleagues. With that, I was able to talk and mingle in a new environment. My colleagues tend to ask things like recipes, how long did I take to make it, and so on, just small talk questions. Everyone was okay, except for this one girl from the same department as me, which I will name her Sally, 27F, a junior designer. From the first day she saw my lunch, Sally has thrown in a lot of comments like how envious she is that I could cook my own meals, etc. It was fine until 1 week later, she started asking me questions like, "So, when will you make me lunch?" I was taken aback, but I thought she was joking and waved it off with a smile and a nod. After that, at least once a week, Sally would ask me the same question again, and sometimes she'd even say things like, "You still owe me a lunch made by you," or she'll whine about me not wanting to cook for her. I've kindly turned her down every time she brings up this issue. Last Monday, she offered to pay me if I make her lunch for $3. I told her no again, and she was visibly upset. She told me it's not that hard to make her lunch since I'm already cooking for myself every single day, and I am being unsociable and unfriendly by not making her food. Since then, she has been passive-aggressive towards me, as well as not willing to cooperate at work when I hand her new tasks. It has made me feel bad about it, and I have no idea how to go about this. Should I have just made her lunch just to keep the peace? This feels horrible, and I don't know how to deal with it. Edit. After reading all your comments, I think I will try to talk to Sally about this, and if that doesn't get through, I'll have to discuss this matter with the same ranking colleague or my supervisor. Verdict. Not the a-hole. Comments where OP has replied. Comment. NTA. Tell her you are under no obligation to cook for her or anyone else. Full stop. I also suggest registering a complaint with HR before she turns this into something else. OP. I've told her that before, but she'll go all pick-me-up, girlish, saying things like, "But your food looks so good." It's honestly driving me crazy, especially now that her attitude has flipped 180 degrees after I turned her down for 3 months. Update 1. Not sure how I post an update, so I will just write it out on my own profile. First off, I would like to clarify some details I left out in my previous post. You can skip this if you don't really bother with the details. For those who said Sally is flirting with me, I am 26F and Sally is anti-LGBTQ, so I think flirting is highly impossible. For those who asked about my job, I work in a design agency as a senior designer. Sally is my work junior. I work closely with the juniors as I oversee their work. Also, I am actually from Southeast Asia. I used USD in my previous post was because Sally legit told me $3. Because USD is 4 times more than our currency. Somehow she believes it sounds nicer. So after reading most of your comments, I've given it a long thought about how I want to approach this issue. With that, I decided to not make lunch today and bring Sally out for lunch as to confront her about this whole lunch thingy privately. I offered to pay for her lunch on the condition I picked the venue, and she was quick to agree. Her attitude went back to how it was before I declined her request, which I find weird, but yay. I was first relieved that, at the least, I could talk to her about things and hoping I can iron this out on my own. That 40 minutes of my life felt like hell. I brought up the issue of me not being comfortable with her recent attitude and her requests after we have ordered our food. The whole time I was talking to her, she either zones out or just retorts with "why?" or "why not?" Here's a little snippet of how our conversation went. Me. Sally, your constant pestering about how I should make you lunch is making me uncomfortable. I'd appreciate if you'd stop that. Sally. Why? Me. I mean, like, I don't cook for anyone other than myself. Sally. Why? Me. Because Sally, I'm your colleague, not your BF or mom or family. Sally. But I don't see why you couldn't make me lunch just once. I'll pay you double this time. It felt like the conversation was going nowhere. The rest of lunch was filled with awkward silence. Sally would just sit there and stare at me without saying anything. And I'm not sure if it's just her zoning out or she's somewhat pissed at me. She didn't even apologize, not once. The whole thing made my stomach feel weird, like something is grabbing my guts and twisting them around. The tension between us was awkward even the whole way we walked back to the office. Another senior designer, Mark, took notice and he pulled me away to talk about work. Sally gave me one more look and walked to her seat. Mind you, up till this point, I have never talked to anyone in the company about Sally and things she had told me. I was brought into a breakout room. Mark went straight to the point. Did Sally ask you for something ridiculous or weird? Turns out some people in the office were unhappy with Sally and her little antics. She once pestered a colleague into buying her souvenirs, as this colleague does a lot of work traveling. In meetings, she would zone out when people are talking to her and she would always shift the weight to someone else, e.g., "Well, we have 30 minutes, so there's nothing to worry about." Also, a few times she'd take bits of food off guys' plates, like fries, and would giggle if anyone tries to tell her off. If the giggling doesn't work, she would retort the same "why?" and "why not?" I got during my talk with her. Mark suggests I should make arrangements with my supervisor to talk about it. They have all done it earlier this year, and that stopped her from doing what she did to them. Well, most of them. She still zones out in meetings or mid-conversations. I thanked Mark for his suggestion and decided it was a necessary next step. I have told my reporting manager about the gist of things, and I will be having a meeting with him tomorrow to give him more in-depth details. Somehow, it's assuring to see he actually had to massage his forehead followed by a long sigh when I mentioned Sally's name. I hope things will get better after this. P.S. As I was typing this, I couldn't help but think back on some of Sally's behavior towards me throughout these 3 months, and at most times it is weird and I didn't know what to make of them. Maybe I'll make a separate post about it if anyone has invested. Haha. Update 2. Not sure if anyone considers this an update, but I just want to write this out. I've talked about the whole Sally thing with my friends over Discord last night while we were playing games. Apparently, some of my friends attended the same art school as Sally and was at one point sharing the same few classes. This is quite a famous art school in my country. If you tell people you are a designer, people's first guess would be you studied there. From what I've gathered from my friends, in short, they describe Sally as a person with bad social skills but is naturally gifted in design. She doesn't talk much, but whenever she decides she wants to be friends with you, she could only spout questions that are uncomfortable to most people. In one instance, Sally asked a classmate why did her parents get a divorce. With that, they've concluded she has bad social skills, but they have never seen her reacting negatively when people don't respond to her. They were shocked when I told them she was being uncooperative at work. Also, according to them, Sally behaves in a way that suggests her parents shield her from the world a lot. She's unaware of many things that's deemed common sense for most. She once became paranoid because she learned about scams in college and believed by picking up one phone call from a stranger would land her in a lifetime of debt. She's also very insecure about many things, e.g., her looks, her weight, relationships, etc. At the end of the day, they didn't know much about Sally personally, because back then they thought she was nosy by always asking people very personal questions. However, Sally does have a few friends in college. With this in mind, I recall how Sally asked me weird questions such as my salary as well as me joining the company as a senior despite her having more work experience than me, as well as trying to dump her relationship problems on me. Maybe it is her attempt in trying to be friends with me. Now that I think about it, she needs some sort of professional help more than discipline for her actions. Comments where OP has replied, comment. She definitely has some social issues and probably needs therapy, but her behavior goes beyond just not understanding social cues. She may be neurodivergent. I'm neurodivergent myself and her parents protecting her has stunted her development greatly. But that's not an excuse for breaking boundaries continuously and only stopping when a higher-up is brought in. She must be an amazing designer to still have a job after all the things she's done and how she just doesn't seem to contribute to the team. She sounds like a nightmare to deal with, honestly. OP. Yes. She does do good work and I do realize her behavior. It's not something you'd see every day. I've suggested to my supervisor that if it's possible for the company to kind of talk her into getting professional help, since we do have this benefit called mental health claims. Nonetheless, I do hope for the best for Sally. Unfortunately, I have no means nor the capability to help her. Update 3. Hello. Hello everyone. This will be the final update. Took me a little while to write this post because I was busy at work. First of all, I'd like to thank you internet strangers for all the advice and similar experiences. It helped me a lot with navigating the situation as a whole. However, I'm still baffled by such behaviors, especially in a work environment where I was taught people are professional there. Anyways, on to the main topic. I had my meeting about the issue I had with Sally first thing in the morning. I told my manager that the main problem is work, about how uncooperative she was with me. It didn't take long for him to link this whole thing back to Sally making unreasonable requests for colleagues again. He didn't exactly tell me what the company would do at the time, but mentioned that the company would take appropriate measures in regards to this. Soon enough, an email was sent to Sally with all the senior designers CC'd in. In short, Sally will be put into probation, as well as having a 30% pay cut, and she has been assigned to a more stern and experienced senior designer. I heard she's really scary. For work evaluation, Sally only gets one more chance to keep her job. One more of those requests from her after this would result in termination. Sally started kicking and crying upon reading the email, as she yelled, "It's not fair," repeatedly. Everyone looked at Sally briefly and went back into their own businesses. I saw some colleagues put on their earphones and raising the volume. Some put on earplugs, and the ones sitting near her would just walk away with their laptops. No one consoled her. Everyone just pretended she wasn't there. It felt as if I was watching a movie at this rate. Still a little worried that Sally would do something to me, I asked Mark if he could sit with me during lunch in case Sally tries anything. I'm not sure if Mark meant it as a joke or what, but he said, "No worry. She's not smart enough to de-link this back to you." Lunch since that day has never been so peaceful, and I'm looking forward to more peaceful lunches as long as I'm with this company. Comments where OP has replied, comment. Great job seeing this through till the end. You improved your, and all of your coworkers and superiors, work environment and mental health by leaps and bounds. I honestly wish the same for Sally. OP, I do hope Sally understood what she's doing is not okay and improve herself, though I wouldn't see myself interacting with her anytime soon outside of work-related matters. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My BF told another girl at a party that I was just his roommate and said he was single, then flirted with her right in front of me. When I confronted him, he cried and said he just wanted to feel wanted for once. I, 21F, and my boyfriend, 23M, our first-year anniversary is in 2 weeks. We went out last night to a birthday party of our mutual friends. He got pretty tipsy but not wasted. I didn't drink since I was driving us home. At some point in the night, I went to go get water, and when I came back, there was a crush of people in the room, so I was standing directly behind him trying to get through. He was talking to some girl, and I heard her ask, "So is that girl you came in with your girlfriend?" And he distinctly said, after some hesitation, "No, she's just my roommate." Haha. I got really pissed off but didn't say anything, just came up to stand next to him. I didn't want to make a scene at my friend's birthday party, but he was going to get an earful when we left. He didn't even notice me for a few seconds and said something like, "You're so pretty," to the other girl. She noticed me glaring at him and left. I was so pissed off at him that I just decided to walk away and talk to my friends the rest of the night. Probably a mistake of not addressing it right there at the time, but I wanted to avoid a big scene if I could. I tried to enjoy myself. My friend, the host of the party, came up to me and asked me if my boyfriend and I had broken up, and she didn't know because she had heard him telling somebody that he was single. After that, I just decided to go home. I was really mad. He could find a ride or crash at our friend's place. She said it would be okay because tons of people were crashing in the living room already. I went home without saying a word to him. This morning, I woke up to all of these texts and calls from him, really pissed that I ditched him at the party without a ride or without warning. He demanded to know, in an accusing voice, where I had disappeared off to, as if I was the one up to some shady shit. I'm just angry and confused because this is coming out of nowhere for me. We have a great relationship and have never had a fight. He tells me all the time that he's so happy we're together and that I'm the best thing that ever happened to him and that he wants to be with me forever. And now pretending I'm not his girlfriend, claiming he's single, flirting with other girls right in front of me. He has never done anything like that before and hasn't even looked at other girls. I don't drink, so is this just dumb drunken behavior that I should excuse? Should I give him a chance to explain himself or just end things now? I'm so pissed off and feel so disrespected. I can't even think of what reason he could give that would somehow make what he did okay in my eyes, but I'm willing to listen to anyone's perspective or other angles on the situation. Update 1. I texted him, "You made it clear last night that you were single. I don't wait around for ex-boyfriends to give them rides home. Don't bother coming back here, as suggested. He immediately tried to call me and I didn't pick up. Then he texted, "WTF are you talking about?" How could he not know? My friend, the host, even just texted me and told him she'd given him an earful all morning when he woke up for being such a dick to me. He denied everything and said he has no idea what she's talking about. They got into a fight about it because he stuck to his guns and claims he never said any of that stuff. I have a feeling he's going to pretend he doesn't remember or blacked out as a way to get out of this. He said he's getting a ride back to my place now. I'm considering not answering the door. But what if he really doesn't remember? I kind of don't care, though. Skeptical, he's coming here now. What do I do? Update 2. He's almost here. My friend told me to talk to him just to hear the complete load of bullshit he's going to unleash on you. Dump him, girl. I would. And she's known him for longer than she's known me. I'm not going to answer the door. Thanks all. Update 3. I know most of you will be disappointed to hear this, but I decided to give him another chance. Just kidding. I only kid because I'm still bawling my eyes out. I did decide to answer the door and hear what he had to say, if only to try to understand his reasons behind it, not as a way to forgive him but to fully understand why. At first, he denied it and said that none of it ever happened and that my friend was lying to me because she was jealous of us and had always wanted him. She has a boyfriend of 3 years. He said he had no idea what she was talking about or why I was so mad at him. I just said, "I heard you say it too." He said, "Say what?" But then he just saw the look on my face and crumbled. He said that prior to us dating, he had never gotten attention from girls before, and it went to his head when it happened last night. He said that he'd always felt in disbelief because he believed I was out of his league, and it was pure fluke that I'd ever been interested in him. Apparently, girls never approached him before we were dating, ever, so when it happened at the party he didn't know how to react. He said he enjoyed the attention for once in his life and just went with it. According to him, he wasn't planning on doing anything, but just impulsively said whatever to keep the attention coming. He swears up and down that he just enjoyed the ego boost that came from girls being interested in him, but he would never, ever cheat on me. In his mind, he thought it was harmless because he knew he would never let it go further than feeding his ego, and that if he'd known that I would hear, he never would have done it and risked hurting me. At this point, I started to cry because to me it was such a stupid reason to throw away what we had. I know some of you will say that I should forgive him. Got a lot of PMs and comments saying it was just a dumb mistake and I don't mean when I'm drunk too, but I just can't. He broke my trust in him and honestly, he hurt my pride. I want a guy who can handle it when some other girl shows interest in him with maturity and respect. A guy who loves me so much that he would never dream of leading a girl on for attention because I feel like my attention should be enough. Someone who's proud to point at me and say, "Sorry, I'm taken, and she's a great girl," with no regrets. I told him that I thought it was a really stupid reason to damage our relationship, being insecure and an attention whore. And I guess it must have sunk in that I was planning to leave him. He broke down crying too and begged me to please try to forgive him because it was a stupid, drunken mistake. It was so hard to stay strong, but I was very angry with him. I cried so hard because he started telling me he loved me more than anyone and he was just stupid, drunk, and inexperienced, and he wished he could take it all back because it wasn't worth losing me. I said I was glad he realized his mistake, but if he really loved me more than anyone, then he really needed a better way to show it than pretending I don't exist to other pretty girls. He got hysterical and just started saying, I'm sorry, I can't lose you. Please forgive me." I told him that I thought his actions last night were honestly pathetic and disgusting, and they changed my view of him. I told him it was sad that he would throw himself after a girl and lie just to get a few minutes of attention, and that I didn't think it was a good excuse to say that never happened to me before so I didn't know how to handle it, or I was just innocently enjoying the attention. What would happen next time? How could I trust him to act appropriately and control himself? He said that he'd learned from this and he'd do better next time, but honestly, I just couldn't get over it. He made me feel worthless as his girlfriend and something he had to hide to get the attention of other women because my attention wasn't adequate. I know that isn't necessarily true, but that's just how he made me feel. I also told him he lowered himself in my eyes, and I didn't respect him anymore. So I told him to get out and not talk to me anymore. I'm leaving a box of his stuff on the porch so he can get it without talking to me. Then I laid on my couch and cried with my dog until I felt sick. It shouldn't feel this shitty because I'm still really mad at him, but we had an amazing year together. And it sucks that something so small and stupid could cause him to jeopardize that. I don't want to be with a guy who values our relationship so little. I feel better today. It sucks not being in a relationship anymore, but I feel like I deserve better. He's been blowing up my phone, saying he's been at home crying and he loves me so much. I'm just waiting for him to pick up his stuff so I can block his number. My best friend also just broke up with his girlfriend of 2 years, so we're planning a road trip together to take our minds off things. I wasn't able to go before because I didn't want to make my boyfriend uncomfortable. Go figure. But this weekend I'm going to go hang out with my bestie and swim at the beach and forget things. Thanks for the support, Reddit. You helped me stay clear-headed. I have a lot of hate and bitterness in my heart right now, but I'm hoping that will pass. Now on to the next story. Story 12. GF wanted an open relationship because she was curious to explore. After our breakup, she confessed she'd been cheating for months and slept with him right after we split. Hello everyone. I, 19M, have been with my girlfriend, 20F, for about 2 to 3 years now. Things have always been good between us. We had a solid relationship, sweet moments, and all the usual stuff that comes with being in a serious, committed relationship. From the beginning, we were clear that our relationship would be exclusive. I'm strictly monogamous. I don't have anything against open relationships or polyamory, but it's just not something I could handle in a serious relationship where my feelings are involved. Lately, though, things started to get weird. She began making comments about other guys, saying how she found some random dude sexy or how attractive someone else was. At first, I just brushed it off and didn't make a big deal out of it, but these comments became more frequent and honestly, it started to feel a bit overwhelming. Then came the real shocker. She told me she was starting to get interested in other people. She said she still loved me, but she wanted to explore things, both personally and sexually. So she then asked, "What if we open the relationship?" I was stunned for a moment and nervously laughed, which she noticed. I half joked, half seriously replied, "Then I'm not going to be a part of it, ha." She got the hint but still kept pushing the idea. I got frustrated and asked her why she wanted this. She said she was curious and wanted to explore her sexuality without damaging the emotional bond we had. I was taken aback but responded, "I support your decision to explore, but if you want that, then forget about me. You know very well that exclusivity is crucial to me in a serious relationship." This led to a heated argument. She accused me of being closed-minded and called me a coward for not being willing to try something new. Those words hurt, and later that night, in my home, I lay in bed wondering if there was a way to talk this through or find some middle ground. We did eventually meet up and began to discuss things more calmly, but no matter what, I just couldn't accept the idea of opening the relationship. Even if I also had the freedom to see other people, it was a solid no from me. I told her, "I'm sorry, but we couldn't come to an agreement. You know my stance on this kind of relationship. I'm glad you want to explore this, but unfortunately, I won't be the person to do that with. Let's just end things now, save ourselves the drama, and move on. You'll have the freedom to do what you want, and I won't have to deal with the anxiety of knowing you're with someone else." She didn't take it well, called me selfish again, and repeated that I was insecure. At that point, I just stayed silent and let her say what she needed to say. We both sat there for a while, both of us with tears in our eyes. We eventually said our goodbyes. She still told me everything she previously thought about me, and after I got home, I saw that she had blocked me on everything. I just let out a sigh and laid down on my bed. Right now, I'm focusing on myself and moving forward, trying to maintain zero contact with her. So AITA for breaking up with my girlfriend because she wanted an open relationship even though she knew my stance on it? Edit. Thanks, you all, for your comments. I really can't reply to all of them, but I read all of them. You all really gave me good advice and also some reasons that I will reflect on. Anyway, thanks. If something happens these days and I see it conveniently, I'll make an update. Update. October 27th, 2024. For the record, forgive me if this has some errors, as this post will be raw and English isn't my first language. Now I will give you more context. It's been 5 days since we broke up. During these days, I've been reflecting, mostly due to some comments on the previous post mentioning that maybe she was always like this, that we were just incompatible, that we are young, and that she has the right to explore her sexuality or whatever. I admit I shouldn't have done it, but I kept thinking and racking my brain more and more. Was she really like this? I didn't pay attention to this when we made the relationship official because this felt so strange to me. When we decided to make things serious, I asked for exclusivity, and she agreed, even emphasized it herself, which left me more and more confused. Anyway, yesterday I ran into her. I know that maybe was an error. I tried to ignore her, but I couldn't since now she wanted to talk to me, and I was about to reject her, but my thoughts got the better of me and I agreed, mainly to ask her about my doubts. We went to her house, and although she tried to be nice, I just asked her to get to the point. We sat down at the table and talked. She tried to ask me how I was doing, but I just dodged the question, and then I confronted her again, asking why she was now bringing up polyamory and all that after so much time being with me, after even she agreed to exclusivity and emphasized it. When I said this, I raised my voice, basically shouting at her. Then I got my answer, and although it was predictable, it still shocked me. Long story short, yes, she has indeed been emotionally cheating on me and was tempted to do it physically. I just stood there stunned, took a deep breath, and even though I was really angry, I asked her since, when, and with whom. According to her, she spent the last 2 months with a guy she met at her college, which coincides suspiciously with when she started acting weird. I raised my voice again, asking what she thought by not telling me. Did she think I was an idiot? Even trying to manipulate me to open the relationship. She said that she didn't want to lose me, that she loved me, and as for opening the relationship, it was advice from her friends. I must clarify that not all of them are women. They told her that she had the right to explore while still being with me, that they even do it and they're still with their partners, and some of their partners have no idea about it. What a shitty people in this life, honestly. I had an urge to scream at her as loud as I could, but I had to keep my composure. I asked her what she did with this guy and if they were still in touch. She just told me that the same day we broke up, she slept with him, but later she regretted it, and in these last few days, she realized her mistake and wanted to be honest with me now with the possibility to give her another opportunity. I couldn't deal with her anymore, and I told her she had almost 3 months to be honest with me, and instead tried to manipulate me into falling into her trap so she could walk away without any guilt. I told her that if she wants to cry, go ahead, 'cause I won't give her another chance, and I don't care anymore because I lost the little respect I had for her. With a knot in my throat from the hurt, I told her clearly that I never want to see her in my effing life again, and that if she sees me in a store, she should avoid me and go somewhere else because I don't want to see or hear her. She broke down crying again, begging me to forgive her, grabbing my shirt to stop me from leaving. I pushed her away, opened the door and slammed it shut. Once I got home, and it would be a lie to say I didn't shed tears. We're young. She wanted to explore her sexuality, and she's right to do so. She was right to tell me she is not the either. Pure bulls. Now I'm still incredibly hurt. I feel worse than when I started, and I feel like an idiot for even crying knowing this could have been a possibility. I will see if I can get back on my feet and move on. Even though I'm still hurt, that's the only thing I can do. Man, I really thought I had a decent girlfriend. Now on to the next story. Story 13. The principal recognized my BF from of. Now they're threatening to fire me if I don't break up with him. I, 24F, am a high school science teacher and my boyfriend, 25M, isn't a model. This is important. Today after school, he helped me carry in some stuff for a lab I'll be doing with my kids. When he arrived, the principal, I'll call her Jan, was outside for dismissal and was able to meet him. While he was helping me set everything up in my classroom, Jan came in and asked if they had ever met since he looked familiar. My BF said he didn't think so, and that was that. When we finished, I gave him a tour of the school that ended at the office. Jan was still there and greeted us again before a look of what I can only describe as fear came across her face. She quickly excused herself, and we were left alone and confused. My BF asked if maybe she recognized him from his page. I said surely not since she's a middle-aged woman who barely knows how to use her phone. He let me live in denial until I got a text from her as we were cooking dinner. She said this, "Good evening, OP. I'd like to have a meeting with you and HR person from HR tomorrow morning. Please be in my office at 7 a.m. So now I'm almost certain that my BF was right and she does know him from his of page. He keeps trying to reassure me that it's not about that, but I can see in his eyes that he's at least a little proud of himself. I've kicked him out to go buy me some stress snacks. My friends are busy and my family doesn't know he's an model, so I don't know who else to turn to. Maybe you'll have advice for me. I want to crawl out of my skin. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. That would be a ridiculous reason to be fired. I would recommend recording if you're in a one-party consent state for recording. She can't fire you because she's a naughty girl. OP. At the beginning of the year, one of my coworkers told me that another teacher got fired for wearing a skirt above her knee. So I'm just freaked out, I guess. Comment 2. Please say your union. Call your rep. Don't admit or agree to anything. In fact, say as little as possible. If it's about his of page, you're about to get paid. But here's a flip side. You said he helped you carry things in. Are supposed to have visitors sign in? Did he? OP. Yeah. I asked for her permission a day in advance and had him sign in at the front office. They gave him a sticker badge. Update. September 12th, 2024. Hello, I asked for advice and y'all gave so much. Thank you, I felt very supported. Also, a lot of y'all clocked it. I do work for a religious private school. Anyway, I arrived for my meeting at 7 o'clock. I know a lot of you thought it was early, but school starts at 7:45, so it was a normal time for me. I did record the meeting, and even though I am in a one-party consent state, I asked to be safe. The meeting started with Jan, my principal, saying that it had recently come to their attention that my BF had been publicly participating in lewd acts. I asked what she meant since, as far as I knew, my BF had never had charges filed against him for something like that. That's when the HR lady, Pam, said that somebody, they couldn't name names, just said it was a staff member, found his of account. Like many of you said, I asked what that was since I had never heard of it. They explained, although they did not look as uncomfortable as I had hoped. Then they asked if I had ever participated in or intended to participate in one of his videos. I said no. Jan said that I couldn't bring any unvetted guests into the building. So I pulled up the email thread I had asking for permission and reminded her that he had his ID scanned in order to get a temp badge. Pam said that it was due to the nature of his online activity, that he would no longer be allowed in the school. I said okay and asked if when I brought my dad to help with things in the future would I need to disclose his online activity as well. Pam said that wasn't necessary, but that they couldn't have any teacher or staff member affiliated with a sex worker. I asked what that meant and she said that I could not bring him onto school grounds, to school functions, or anything relating to the school. Additionally, since the school represented the church, the staff could only have relationships with people who upheld a dignified image. Apparently my BF doesn't do that. She also said that if they receive one report from a parent, student, or staff member of my affiliation with him after this meeting, that would be grounds for immediate termination. I asked if that also applied to the staff member who reported it in the first place, since they went onto a porn site. Jan said that was irrelevant, that the meeting was about me, not the other staff member. The meeting ended shortly after. They asked me to sign an acknowledgement of the meeting. I told them I wanted to review it first and brought it home with me. My BF is furious and at the same time keeps apologizing, saying that it's his fault, but it's not. The standards for teachers are crazy. We're going to have a little Indeed/LinkedIn date, so hopefully I can get out of there ASAP. Lesson learned, though. Never take a job at a religious school. Now on to the next story. Story 14. Raised my late husband's kids for 5 years while he battled his illness. Now, after his death, their jailed mother wants me to adopt them while his parents try to block me. This is sort of a long story, but I need to share because I'm feeling so overwhelmed. My husband died 1 week before Thanksgiving. We were unofficially separated at the time. We were not living together. I still loved him, but I had chosen to distance myself due to his drug addiction in hopes that he would seek treatment and get clean. He was seeking help, but it was not enough and he overdosed. He had trouble with drugs when he was younger, like college age, but he got clean and I believe he stayed clean for many years. He had a girlfriend back then who also became addicted to drugs, and they had 2 kids. Ultimately, he got clean, had a good job, had his life in order, and was doing everything he was supposed to, and he was awarded custody of their 2 kids. I actually knew him back in elementary and middle school. We lost touch when we attended different high schools. We didn't meet again until after that first instance of addicted and recovery. He had been clean for a few years when we met. His kids were 5 and 3, and they're 10 and 8 now. Their mom had supervised visitation. I have no biological children of my own. He passed away, and I'm devastated over it. I can't really accept it yet, but I feel especially crushed for his children. They haven't had an easy time over the past year or so as he's dealt with his problems, and now they've suffered the ultimate loss. I've remained in their lives even while we were separated and not living together. He moved back in with his parents and took his girls with him, but I still visited them often and remained involved in all aspects of their lives. I never called myself their mom, but I essentially was their mom on a day-to-day basis. I did all the things a mom would do. Their mom was recently arrested on a burglary-related charge and is in prison. This happened after he died. I thought she was doing better. She was at his memorial and seemed more together than many times in the last. She wrote me a very heartbreaking and heartfelt letter asking me to adopt her daughters. She basically admitted she doesn't know if she'll ever overcome her addiction and that she doesn't want the girls to go live with relatives on either side. She wants them to stay with me because it's what they know now, and she feels they're safe. She said they asked her if they can come live with me and referred to my house, our former family home, as home. I wasn't expecting that at all. She hadn't been particularly fond of me before. She's been talking for years about how she's going to get clean for her girls and get custody of them again. And she actually had some good moments, but it never stuck. I feel like the world's worst person by not immediately saying yes. I haven't responded to her at all yet. I feel like the world's most evil person not immediately saying yes. I love those girls. I've lived with them as essentially their mom for several years. I've worried about them every single day. Yet, why do I find myself thinking, do I really want to do this? I also don't even know if it'll be possible or what kind of fight it'll be. I don't think his parents will agree so easily. I got along with his parents just fine, but they're big on family, and they are absolutely destroyed by his death. So, I can't imagine they'd let the girls go without a big fight. I can't help but wonder what kind of possibly lifelong mess I'd be getting myself into if I pursued this. Dealing with her, both sides of the girls' extended family, the trauma the girls will probably be dealing with forever because of their parents. I don't know that I'm strong enough to handle it all, and it makes me feel like a horrible human being. Update: March 30th, 2025. My husband died from a drug overdose in November 2024. He had drug issues when he was in his late teens/early 20s, got clean, and remained clean for many years. He had full custody of his 2 daughters who are now 8 and 10. He relapsed sometime in 2024. He and I were separated and living apart at the time of his death. I had hoped that he'd get things back on track and we could be together again. The mother of his daughters is also a drug addict. She never managed to get and stay clean for any significant stretches. She's been arrested multiple times. She was at his memorial service and seemed to be in good shape for her. But she was arrested soon after that. She's still in jail now. When she first entered jail this last time, she wrote me a letter telling me she wanted me to adopt her daughters. They'd been living with my husband's parents but had asked me several times about when they'd be able to go home to what had been our family home. I was basically their mom. I never referred to myself as their mom, and they didn't call me mom, but I filled that role. They had sporadic contact with their actual mother. In the letter she wrote me, she even told me they told her they wanted to live with me. I posted about all of this 3 months ago. Since then, I've decided to pursue custody of them. It was a huge decision and one that, while I spent a lot of time thinking about, I didn't have the luxury of taking too long. What finally tipped me over the edge was my former in-laws saying they didn't believe the girls should go to therapy to help them deal with their father's death and their virtually absent drug-addicted mother. It was shocking because what person in their right mind wouldn't think these girls should have all of the help they can get? At the same time, it wasn't surprising coming from them. They lived in denial of their son's problems, too. They were the biggest enablers I ever met as well. They're extremely focused on image and achievement, just being the best, sports, competition. I believe they have good intentions, but that doesn't change how their actions affected their son, other children, or grandchildren. I never thought I'd be teaming up with my husband's ex-girlfriend, but here we are. This isn't easy for her. No, she's not been a present or good mom, but I know she wishes she was. I know it's hard for her to admit she can't be their mom, despite her problems and her track record of extreme selfishness. I can't imagine what it takes to give up custody of your children. And I'm glad she's finally putting her own wants aside to do what she thinks is best for her kids. I'm also sorry for her that despite still having parental rights over the girls, she's not being granted the authority to allow them to be adopted by somebody she designates. I understand there need to be safety measures in place to ensure children are placed with safe people, but I'm willing to do any sort of evaluations needed to prove I can provide a safe and stable home for them. You'd think it would be as simple as her terminating her parental rights and indicating that she wants me to adopt the children. And while that is part of the process, it's not actually that cut and dry. His parents, who again are obsessed with winning everything, have already tried to block this with the courts. They're basically trying to file some sort of injunction where if her rights are severed, they get first chance to adopt the girls, and they are trying to drag me through the mud in the process and frame it to look like I can't be a fit parent. I may be single, but they're in their 60s. The girls love them, but they don't want to live with them full-time. Up until last summer, our home, where they lived with me and their dad, had been their home for almost as long as they could remember. I'm not wealthy. I support myself just fine, but I don't have reserves to fight this if they really want to take it that far. And the annoying thing is, I still get the sense that ultimately, they're doing this just because they want to win. And they also have an obsession with family and their family name. I never expressed any intention of trying to sever the relationship between them and the girls. Even if I don't necessarily like or agree with certain things about them, I told them outright that I felt we all could and should be part of the girls' lives. The girls do love their grandparents and their aunts, my husband's sisters, neither of which has shown any interest in gaining custody of the girls. I think they need as many people who love and care about them in their lives, and that even includes their mother's family, who I'd also grin and bear for their sake. I'm just so frustrated, and this isn't something that most people can easily relate to. I thankfully have many people who support me even if they think I'm crazy for doing this at the same time. It's just that I suppose there's very little advice anyone can give me from experience. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.